Once the cities have things for
That's good. Hudson, this is one of our fine youth city councils.
all right.
Have you met the mayor? Did you meet the mayor?
So I can't swear, huh?
Oh.
What did he say?
You gotta have root beer.
He had root
I
beer in
love
his
it.
house.
You gotta be all upstanding citizens when we got youth city council here.
No doubting.
Geez, you mean,
Takes all the fun out of it, right?
I'm going home.
Yeah, might as well leave now.
And this is how this up.
So, you're on. Thank you. So, for tonight, well, tonight's work session, I want to talk about the PUD stuff, or the, whatever it's called, PD, what did we call it? PD.
Plan development
PD
overlay.
overlay.
PD overlay.
And then I want to, that plan you had, I just want to be able to give the one by Smith and Edwards, give Amy some direction on what she should, what a next move or what our conversations look like as to what might be a method for that. Because she did reach out to me yesterday. And then,
I'd say let us finish the ordinance and then give her direction.
well, yeah, but I'm, well, yes, let's talk about it. And then lastly, I did leave, because I know I sent out an updated concept about the item that's on for our public hearing tonight. I wanted to leave 10-15 minutes at the end. Liam is attending tonight. If there are any questions you have related to the concept or anything agreement-wise for Liam or before our meeting, so that's kind of the structure. So Darren, lead us off.
Everybody.
Hi.
All right, Greg. Mayor Tim. I don't have one.
You gotta participate.
You can share. So this week, all I did is I incorporated everything we had before, and then this applicability thing I got rid of because it just said 3 acres, so I just moved that down into the plan development designation in the blue on that first line of the second paragraph. The PD overlay zone is permitted on areas of 3 acres or more located in residential zones. So that got rid of the top, and then the bottom part was something that was part of something else, another paragraph that basically said the same thing later on in the ordinance, but it had something to do with the zoning map. It said that you'd, like, if you read that bottom paragraph, the plan development overlay zone designation PD shall become a suffix to the residential zone with which as it is combined and shall be shown on the official zoning map. So that'd be like R115 PD. Are we wanting to
I think it has to be shown
do
on the
that?
zoning map, it just won't be shown on the future zoning map. Because we're not gonna like plan
Well,
areas.
but,
for it.
and that's not it's not even a zone, it's future land use. We changed that language.
Oh, future.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
don't we have a zoning map,
We have a zone map,
right?
but
And
then we
future
have a
land.
proposed future land use map. And we got rid of zone in that because it got complicated.
But
and
I wouldn't want it in our future land use map, I would just wanna be able to show it in our zoning.
That's true.
Zoning.
So, and that's the only one he's
Okay, yeah,
referring to.
That's
yeah,
what,
so.
so I agree with that.
So do you agree, everybody agree with that? So other than that, all the other changes we talked about are in there. And then I went ahead and everything in blue on pages 2, 3, and 4 are just adding more to from the ordinance. We're gonna take it a little bit by bit. So this gives kind of the procedure for application of a PD overlay. So basically just section A, application for a PD overlay zone designation shall follow the procedures listed in this title, or I'm gonna change that to ordinance. But anyway, preliminary development plan. Preliminary development plan, all application for a PD overlay designation shall be accompanied by a preliminary development plan. The plan shall contain the following. 1, a complete and accurate legal description of the property proposed for the plan development. 2, topographic maps, and I'm not sure, Do we do topographic maps right now?
No.
All right, I didn't get rid of that then, because
I wondered about that one.
I didn't think we did, so. A tabulation of the total acreage of the site and the percentages thereof to be designated for parking, residential units, open space, streets, et cetera.
Do we need, well, I guess, is parking for a town, okay. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's later on, it gets more specific on that, but they want kind of the acreage of how much acreage the roads are gonna take and so
Yeah.
forth. Proposed circulation pattern, including private and public streets and pedestrian paths, parks, common open space, playgrounds, public facilities, and other improvements or amenities proposed within the planned development. General location of all dwellings and other structures in the development, and an indication of proposed population density and building density units per acre, including percentages of each dwelling type being proposed. Proposed location of parking and ingress and egress. A landscape being planned showing what areas are to be landscaped and what types of plants and materials are to be used, including sprinkler and irrigation systems. Preliminary elevations or perspectives of all building types proposed within the development.
We gotta be careful with that one, because the single family we probably won't see. So it's gotta be like the multi-family. However we put that.
They won't show you the single
because-
family.
Say they have 50 single family,
Mhm.
they'll be sold individually and the plans will be done at that time.
Okay.
The townhomes will be the only ones that,
Yeah, they have elevations. and
Yeah, and-
perspectives, yeah.
can I give you a great example of this? And why I would almost, I guess preliminary elevations could work. Ogden City has an ordinance that when you submit for townhomes or anything within theirs, you have to have full drawings with their submittal. And it's the biggest pain in the butt, because a lot of times when you go in for site plan, you don't even know if the site's gonna work. So you're not spending $100,000 building and designing the buildings when you don't know if the site's gonna work. So a lot of times that deters them altogether.
But these are just preliminary, so this is
So
preliminary,
you're
so,
talking kinda like
so
what we
River
do
Black,
for
River Blacksmith
okay,
brought it
I'm
in,
good with
and they had single family dwellings on theirs, and it's just proposed,
Okay.
it's not,
So you can leave it for all then?
Yeah,
So you're not
yeah.
expecting that to be
no, that's not
the
permanent.
the
right?
end all be all? of
No,
what
this
the
is,
bill
this is just preliminary, it's just like,
Okay. I'm
this
good with
gives
that.
us an idea of what they're doing.
Can you add the word preliminary on there?
It is,
Yeah.
it says
That's the
first
preliminary,
word.
yeah.
Yeah, preliminary.
Under nine.
Proposed.
Nine.
Kind of
Nine.
what they showed us last night.
I'm
they have
sorry.
a new tool
Forgive
they
me,
can
wrong one.
use to actually do this in 3D. Their conceptuals. Remember them talking about that?
It's been around for a while. I don't remember that.
The illustrations we did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like that they saw?
Yeah, that can be used for this, for
Oh,
all
yeah.
these discussions. I
Yeah.
was in a meeting today where they were talking with Sandy about going, this is how they're doing their general plan and everything. Laying it out, like, here's some conceptual, what it would
Yeah.
look like in 3D.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, those are possible, you know,
Tools available.
but the River Blacksmith is a perfect example. Like,
Yeah.
these are example products, and we actually attached those to the development agreement anyway.
That's kind of the thought I had on
Okay,
that.
sorry, I was thinking way too.
You're thinking far,
yeah,
far down the
way
road.
too
This is,
far into that.
this is preliminary, this is
It's a little bit
application, and,
sensitive
yeah.
right now.
All right, preliminary subdivision plat if the site is being divided, showing a general layout of all proposed lots. 11, a preliminary utility plan showing the manner in which adequate sewage disposal and water are to be provided to the site, including the point from which said services are to be extended. 12, evidence that the applicant has sufficient control over the subject property to effectuate the proposed plan. 13, a draft of the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restriction as required here. And so later on, we'll get to that. There's a paragraph on covenants and conditions and restrictions.
Well, and at
So we'll
what
do
point, I
that.
know this is probably a step ahead, but at what point are we doing a draft of the development agreement as well?
So I thought that would be, we could do that in here as well, if we want to
The
draft.
only thing I
but-
would say is to put it in the prelim part. So is there a prelim and then a final?
So this is prelim, section B right here. Yeah, then, so final will be coming up. I haven't got to final yet.
Because sometimes, like the very beginning, so if we say they're coming in with a development plan, which is like your conceptual, it's a waste of time to have a development agreement at that time because you don't know all the pieces. So if
Right.
it's in the prelim, I'm good. Okay.
So you want to put it here in the prelim section?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay.
A draft development
So,
agreement.
so we'll put that, so we'll put in,
Because then we've had a chance to say, oh
we'll
yeah.
insert it here between 13 and
like-
14 and put a draft development agreement in there.
Because then we would have had a chance to talk about open space. things like
Yeah.
that.
And then 14 is other items that may be required by the planning commission. So they come in, they talk to us and we say, hey, you know, let's have this as well or so forth. So that's just a catch-all at the end there. So C is application and preliminary plan review.
Somewhere in here there needs to be, a recommended, I don't think we can, well, a
There will be
a development agreement, or a development meeting. They need to come to a development meeting.
And when does that happen
Prior
before?
to the plan, so it'd be like application, development meeting, city development meeting.
So right here,
Free, yeah, free.
preliminary, so
So
talking
like-
about applications here, clear back to B.
So you could go in A, part of the application is to have a free, call it a city development meeting. And I say that because, and I know you guys don't attend those, but, the public works is in those, and it helps a lot to say like what utilities are around, what upsizing might be done, like things that we don't know anything about, they get, from the beginning, they get
That'll
a.
actually help them in their proposal.
So when they come to us the first time, it'll be a much more knowledge-based proposal.
Okay, so that's up there. I'll put that up there. And then we're on to C, application and preliminary plan review. The planning commission shall review the application for a PD overlay zone designation and accompanying preliminary development plan. The planning commission shall approve, disapprove, or approve subject to compliance with such modifications or conditions as may be deemed necessary to carry out the purposes of this ordinance and the preliminary plan. The approval of the preliminary plan shall be made only after the planning commission finds that the proposed development will provide more beneficial environment than a conventional residential development established under the provisions of the current underlying residential zone, that the proposed development will not be detrimental to adjacent properties and to the general area in which it is located, and that it will be in substantial harmony with the character of existing development in the area, that the development project will provide more efficient use of the land and more usable open space than a conventional development permitted by the residential zone, that increased densities allowed within the proposed development will be compensated by better site design and by the provision of increased amenities and recreational facilities, that any variation allowed from the development standards of the residential zone will not increase hazards to the health, safety, or general welfare of the residents of the proposed planned development or adjacent areas. And then you get to D, and it says, based on its action with the preliminary development plan, the planning commission shall then recommend to the city council either approval or denial of the PD overlay zone designation on the applicant's property. And then E, city council action, the city council shall review the application and preliminary development plan and either approve or deny the PD overlay zone designation for the proposed development.
Should we say anything in D that based on the actions with the preliminary development plan and the commission shall then, so the commission should hold a public hearing and then shall recommend? Because it would be nice to know that if I was reading this, if I was the developer, I'd say, okay, and I'm gonna need to have a public hearing.
Okay, we can inject a public hearing in there.
Just to say, I mean, however, based on the action with this, the
Yeah.
planning commission shall hold a public hearing and then recommend to city council.
Always good to get public input, whether you want it or not. It's always good.
All right, and that gets us to, and then the next phase will be like final type approval. It'll talk about final development agreement, final
That's
plans and
I don't know.
stuff.
I'm gonna give you all the credit and pretend you didn't copy it from somewhere.
Well,
but
I
this is
did
great.
edit some of it, so.
It's great.
I recognize a lot of it.
A lot of it is so this was what, Clearfields?
Clearfield, yeah.
But their wording and stuff, whoever did that, their grammar was like,
Oh, yeah. But the concepts are there, though. You extract the concepts, yeah.
it's like you had to go through
Spencer
their
Brimley
grammar
wrote it.
quiz. Who did?
Spencer Brimley.
Okay.
I like it.
Chat,
Hmm?
chat GPT.
I know.
Jerry.
No, I like it a lot.
But the gist of this is, most of it's gonna be captured in development agreement. This is just laying the foundation of what we want in there.
Yeah.
So it gets in, the next section gets into setbacks and everything else.
What is our percentage open space in we have anything that has a percentage of open space? Like, that's
Mixed
not
use, I
commercial,
think.
is mixed use the only one?
I think we have, don't we have some open
Not-
space
not
and
in
mixed use?
residential, we don't,
Yeah, not in residential. just-
because
Yeah.
in residential, you get your open space from, you have to implement parks and trails according to.
Yeah,
the
because I'm like, I remember
plan.
with the Smith
There
Family,
isn't anything,
the Smith Plaza or whatever it's called, but that was because of the park, so they got smaller lots for that. Okay,
few, but not as many as could have.
right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's just because of the age of the PD zone. Does the current, general plan support this?
Yes,
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
this is residential.
I was gonna say, yeah, just a
Oh, it
residential
says.
zone, yeah.
So there's about 4 more pages to this.
Just as
Just
related to
the-
application?
No, related to final approval.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you can leave us on the edge of our seats for another
Yeah,
2
yeah,
weeks.
leave you
Well,
on the
I
edge
think
of
we
your
get,
seat.
yes. Really, the most, I mean, and the process can be finalized and tweaked and all that kind of stuff, but really, it's the gist of the meat of what would allow them to come sit in front of us. Meaning, they have to have more than 3 acres, they have to have a concept that would be better off than a normal. So are we meeting the intent of what this would do and who this would bring in front of us, is my question.
Yeah, does this proposal, does it encourage open space and or our housing strategies?
Right.
That's kind of the point.
It does both.
Right.
So I think we're on the right track if this is what we want to do, so.
I agree, and I think we've hit acres, percentage open space, we have a units per acre minimum or maximum, and then we have the 50% allowable of townhomes. So I think you're controlling the most concern there, and then the rest is left for creativity.
So one other thing that came up after reading an article today in that the legislature is pushing for external accessory dwelling units on any size lot.
Yeah, I shared that. You see that article from KSL? Yeah, I was getting a little direction already. Yeah, I got a
We
little.
went round and round on that as a committee.
We were already headed that direction.
So I was just
Just the FYI, right?
do we have to write
That's the
something that
current
prohibits accessory dwelling units, or can we even,
After-
if the legislature passes something?
If they pass that, we can't, but we have, and Greg was asking this, and so Blue, we're talking about in, what we're, actually, you guys have it now, with the AUs. They still can't exceed 20%.
Of your total area or
Of
back?
rear yard area.
Area.
Rear yard.
Well, that's right. It's
Total
rear
yard.
yard, that's
Rear
correct.
yard.
It's rear yard, that's correct.
Rear yard.
Okay,
You just can't put them in front or on the side.
right, that's true. But were we given an assignment from the city council?
Yes.
Okay,
I got a copy of it.
okay, cause that, I was told that was urgent, something
Wow.
about, or just next assignment. Okay,
We're not burning down the house.
okay, well, David J thought it was really urgent.
If you already have a building,
We want to stay in front.
if you have a large detached structure,
Before they do this.
or a garage or a shop or anything like that in your backyard, that adds, and you can't be any greater than 20%. So you have to take whatever that is off,
So it's
what you're
not,
proposing to
yeah.
build.
It's whatever your
So if you've got
backyard
a
currently
big
is.
accessory dwelling unit already there, you're done.
Gary.
Yeah, if you have a secondary
Yeah,
building,
but
large
if
shop back there.
you
you're
have
done.
an accessory building back there, a big shed or something, then you've got to deduct that, and that takes half your yard.
But if you don't, and you're putting a swim pool in, and you want to put a pool house in.
Brandon's is always very personal.
How does that calculate in? Is that an accessory unit?
No.
I think the pool house is gonna be the
Water storage.
A water bed.
Water storage.
detention basin in my backyard, yeah.
Basin, I like that even better.
So, to stay somewhat on track, if, Darren, you've done a great job on this. Let's talk to a little bit about how this relates to, and I know he has the site plan, the piece by Smith Family Park. I know we were kind of thinking this would fall in it, however, that has a commercial component. So what are our thoughts on, I guess I need to give them advice on how to move forward. So I need a little help of what our thought is of the best method for theirs is. And here's to give you some of you information. There's multiple ways. There's to take this component and have a development agreement that would allow a commercial component to it. I feel like that is opening the door a little bit with such a new ordinance. There is also leaving it in the commercial zone and having a development agreement to say the opposite, that there is residential allowed in this. So we need to be thinking how, if this is something that we entertain, what is the method of her getting here? Not saying that it's this concept, not saying that it's exactly this, but to allow this scenario, what's our method?
I don't know, what's Clearfield's ordinance say?
I don't know, so they don't have any commercial in their PD overlay, so.
And I really feel strongly that it does not relate to our PD overlay because it is residential only, and to put a new ordinance in place.
This
and
does,
immediately go
there's a
to the-
mismatch
So
there.
this doesn't go with that, and plus the general plan has this as all commercial.
Yes, yep.
So I was trying to like think of ways to get around changing the general plan on that, but
Is there a way to do, and we have lovely Liam here, is there a way to do a development agreement over that, leaving it commercial with a development agreement that allows a residential component?
That was the rest of the conversation.
Okay, sorry. Okay, let me start over, sorry.
maybe show.
So
Liam
the
that.
parcel by Smith and or by Smith Family Park, right here,
Uh-huh.
that is undeveloped here. They came in with a concept with some smaller lots as a buffer, some townhomes, and then the commercial component. The question is, if the commission likes the concept, tweaking it as we go, but what is the method of us even being able to do this?
What is it zoned right now?
C2.
Commercial.
Commercial.
Residential then?
And they want to put residential. in
Mixed
there.
use.
With some commercial
It's a mixed use, is what they're proposing.
Yeah, so we'd have to change it to mixed use if we.
But our mixed use.
But it doesn't match,
Would our mixed use ordinance not allow for what they want to do?
Well, it doesn't allow because it's 50, has to be 50 acres or more.
but we've talked about changing that many times. Personally, I think we ought to revisit that and get real about the acreage requirement.
Well,
Because,
go ahead, yeah, you could do it that way. If you wanted to do a development agreement, you could do a development agreement and let it go that route.
That parcel right there is like 3.5 acres. Is it 3?
About.
About 3.5. So, the mixed use ordinance would have to come down to 3 acres.
I think
Well-
the development agreement would isolate that particular piece of property, not
I
open it up to anything else.
I
by changing the
personally
ordinance.
like that.
It would, exactly right. It would just relate to that exact piece of ground.
Mhm.
You could also split zone it where it's the commercial, and the other is residential.
And rezone just that.
And now we're spot zoning.
Then how do you, because you would still ultimately at the end of the day want a development agreement.
Yeah, you can,
Would they have to subdivide it in that case?
yeah.
Yeah, they would.
Anyway.
Well, and the recorded plat would subdivide at some point.
Yeah.
Would they need any open space?
But here's the thing
No.
too, they don't
It's too
they also don't meet our residential. So even if we zoned them residential, they'd still need a development agreement because the lots don't meet.
Just about do it all in the.
Yeah, so might as,
Yeah, I would agree. It'd be way easier.
there's gotta be open space in this.
I couldn't see where.
I don't
Well,
see
they're
where the
counting
open
around the
space-
townhomes, I'm sure, something like that. But there'd have to be an open space component for the townhomes, not the single
Family Park
family.
right across the street.
but
I think that's what we discussed.
given the context, it's kind of almost ridiculous to impose open space when they can walk
Walk up across the street.
to a big park.
Problem- I think that's the route we were taking when we discussed this before, is the open space
Being the park.
being the park.
Okay.
I think that's what we discussed at the beginning of this.
Greg?
The problem with that is not everybody has a park that could come in and propose this.
Well, yeah, but that's why we're going through the development agreement. That's why, then it
You
becomes
mean
a
about a precedent?
specific.
Potentially.
That's,
But
Yes.
that can be worded in the development agreement to say that open space, as to the park.
could you add language in that development agreement that makes it abundantly clear that the context of this development agreement is an adjacent park? You know what to get around what you're talking about.
I just think we're relying a lot on development agreements rather than just meeting the zone requirements.
Well, but here's the flip side of that. This doesn't become developable then. And this hits some of our
I'm sure there'll be
affordable.
I'm sure there's something that could be built on there.
Well, yeah, but this meets some of our affordable housing requirements. This does actually something good for what we need in an area that was already planned for a commercial component.
This is a little bit different than, I think, a developer kind of pushing something down our throats we're choking on.
Agreed.
I
It's an
think almost
easy way
everybody,
to
when they
check.
saw this, jumped on us. That's a good idea, much better than what we had thought it was gonna be. So it's the setting's a little different. Your concern about setting a precedent, I think you could create language that would make it that, the context is an enormous amount of open space across the street. And that's not gonna be matched very likely in the future.
Anywhere.
Yeah, so if you've got that language, then why are you worried about a precedent?
I'm just saying,
Greg always plays the
you gotta be
devil's
careful about spot zoning.
Wouldn't they need to widen some of those? Like, that's a lot of people to access this area, right? You're coming right into.
Here's something you need to think about.
Let's-
Right now, there are legislators
Yeah.
who want to just tell all the cities, you have to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And the only compromise we have is to be proactive with some developers in isolated areas of our cities that meets that
Freaks
requirement
people
to
in.
the legislators.
I-
Because you do not want them forcing it down our throats. And I guarantee you, there's gonna be some legislation coming in January that we're not gonna like, and we need to be able to combat it.
Well, they're aiming at burning the zone book, just eliminating it.
There's only certain legislatures that are legislative people that are doing that, not the entire legislation.
Yeah, but there's some leanings,
There are.
serious leanings.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that home builders association is a tough group. A lot of power there.
I'll have more for you after the November meeting.
There's also an opportunity, and I think I sort of shared it with Lou a little bit, there's a thing at Weaver County where the legislators will be there for us to go and communicate.
That was the email you sent out, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Sent so many of them.
So I have a question for Liam, if he doesn't mind. So when we did the innovative zone down by Amazon, it was stated that it would be nice to have an underlying zone that somewhat matched what we were going to do there. Does the C2 with this development kind of underlying where there is gonna be a commercial component? Just so people don't get heartburn over, hey, this was this zone and you put this in here.
It does align a lot more closely, as opposed to it being A1 or something. If there's an agricultural zone and then this goes in with the development agreement. With it being commercial, it doesn't cause me concern to leave it C2 and then do a development agreement.
Okay,
Because it does have that component.
all right, sounds
And to
good.
Greg, to your point about setting the precedent, I mean, this I've been here 5 minutes, from what I've seen and briefly heard, this looks like, in the 5 minutes I've been here, prime candidate for a development agreement. Because our zoning ordinances and zoning laws, we can never account for every single thing that's gonna
Contingency,
come up in the
yes.
future. And that's where the development agreement is really, really handy exactly for something like this, where it doesn't quite meet the underlying zone. It's a little bit different. We don't have a zone that specifically fits. The development agreement is the instrument created exactly for this.
The concern that I have is where I used to work, and you used to work there as well, from what I understand, and how many of the development agreements went south.
Oh, Suffolk County?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the concern that I have.
Yeah. Oh, I
That's why I, hate to lean on those so much.
Yeah, and I think development agreements have really evolved a lot more than they were originally, and they have a lot more teeth in them as far as enforceability of them, more than they used to. It used to just be a nice pat on the back, kind of hope your development goes well and hope that everything goes according to plan. And so.
You
yeah,
understand my concerns.
I understand those concerns, absolutely.
It's tough to kick an old dog.
I understand.
Especially a grumpy one.
Oh, goodness.
He knows I mean.
I'll take that with a smile.
Okay.
I would be offended, but my wife says the same thing.
Is there any more discussion on this piece that I can kind of report back to her as.
Relative to redesigning it, you mean? Or
Well,
reconfiguring it somehow?
no, not to the design. That part, I would invite them to come in and have a work session with us. This was just a prelim concept. Hey, how do I even move forward on this? We didn't know the directions. That's why I was putting it in front of you. So no, they will come in, we can talk design. This is just an avenue, so I can say, okay, let's try to leave it here, do a development agreement. And
Basically, yes, we're willing to listen.
yes, there you go.
And I think you have a better chance of coming to a good agreement between this particular developer other than, or rather than them selling it to somebody else and being a whole new deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think the design is not only compatible, but in my view, represents the best interest of Far West. I mean, it's a good idea. We've had some developments come in that,
Yeah.
this is not one of them.
And they have, vested interest in making it nice. So.
And it's not 60 acres worth.
That's the point.
Okay, that being said, since we've gone kind of fast tonight, guys. Usually you give me a harder time. Liam is here.
Dan was well prepared.
Yeah, Darren, you killed it, seriously. We have Liam here. Is there any questions about the new concept or any legal questions related to development agreements or anything that you may have had last time?
And I don't know how closely you guys have read the agreement. Just to your point, you said earlier, we adopted ICD, and we're kind of being the zone that we use the development agreement. If you read it real carefully, you'll notice it does deviate from our ICD. In our discussions with Marriott Slaterville, we decided the deviations, for example, the 20% open space requirement. Marriott Slaterville is more restrictive on how much open space they want than Farr City is. So we went with what is more restrictive. When we both had similar codes and ordinances that were similar in nature, but one was more restrictive than the other. The height limitation of buildings was one of those. Marriott Slaterville was much more restrictive than ours. We went with the Marriott Slaterville height restriction. Dark sky lighting is the same thing. Marriott Slaterville has a very comprehensive dark sky ordinance. We incorporated that. That's why it deviates for the most part slightly from the underlying zone, is because where Marriott Slaterville was more restrictive, we took the Marriott Slaterville approach.
And I think we're also going to be taking the higher fees from each, either.
Yeah.
Like our stormwater impact fees are higher than Marriott Slaterville, so the whole cycle goes wrong.
Something I want to go in here. Detention basin locations and
Oh, yeah,
stuff for the property. Yeah, stormwater retention, yeah.
Greg, I see some notes over there. Do you have questions or?
I have a couple comments.
Okay.
Okay, I don't consider that as concept plan. The concept plan is used for the feasibility of the development. Is the drawing that shows the site and how the site will be developed. It illustrates the long-term vision for the development, including and how the land will be used, the streets will be laid out, and open space will be designed. This is a concept plan. This is not.
Has streets, has open space.
Show me where the buildings are.
Yeah,
They're coming back for site plan. I would argue
yeah,
that,
but we're
you're right.
looking at a map, a street map. That's all we're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at a potential street map because
Well,
these
yeah,
are
even that's potential.
proposed public roads.
The changes that were made, that part of that Far West open space, in quotes, like adjacent to the canal used to be 60 feet wide, and I couldn't even see what it was on my computer. What did they reduce that to?
You're gonna have to ask. It was a Marriott Slaterville asked for the trail. Hold on, I gotta pull up what I sent. Decrease the size on the Willard Canal. Canal is the buffer and the section has excess land on the east side of the canal as further buffer.
So that buffer basically disappeared.
It's still there.
Well, in a little thin thing, you can't read the legend. so
You're
you
gonna have to
don't-
ask them about that. They did it to create a bigger buffer for the school, was the comment.
No, I
This was
understand,
required to get the school.
but it is a condition where Far West is giving up open space and Marriott Slaterville is gaining open space. Now, I understand their rationale, but the reality is if you're on the far west side of the fence, there's less open space than there was before.
Yeah.
Now, did they just tell you that's what they're gonna do? Who's involved in these meetings where this kind of decision you make
This
takes?
was based, and William can pop in, but this was based on the approval of Marriott Slaterville last week. So because of the school situation, they adjusted these, and this is what was approved in Marriott Slaterville last
Right.
week.
So they put additional conditions and they adjusted to their conditions. But we're not allowed to put additional conditions. We just have to
Well,
live
they made an
with
adjustment.
it, right?
No,
We could.
yeah, that, but what in effect happened is they made an adjustment to accommodate the school by making an adjustment in our open space and reducing it.
Mhm.
That's in effect what happened.
But we could say,
In effect, because the canal buffer was
we
there.
don't want that to be reduced. So you have to make that concession to Marriott Slaterville while keeping what you originally showed us.
Yes, yeah, I think you guys really wanted to do that.
Okay, just making sure that's possible.
It's
Okay.
here for review and approval by this group, not just for blanket.
Sure.
Correct.
And if you read the language in the agreement, it says a minimum of 20% open space, trails, landscaping, and parks. And then the part that gives me heartburn, which shall be measured on a project-wide basis rather than on an individual parcel basis. So based on that language, that open space could occur anywhere on this plan,
That's correct.
including none in Far West, if you read it that way. And that's the way I read it.
They have discretion about that.
So their discretion could, in the extreme case, could eliminate all open space from Far West. Understand? That's what the language says. And this, in fact, is an example because they have,
Agreed and did it, yeah.
you've seen it in operation because they've removed some of our open space and put it in their park.
Then I'll cross that one off.
Can I ask you a question? The planning commission's gonna probably throw up when they hear me mention these again. But there was two parts of this master development agreement that just killed me, and just bothered me. It says the developer reserves all
Mhm.
discretion to determine whether to develop a particular portion or phase of the property based on the developer's business judgment. To me, that's extremely strong language. That means the when, the what, the developer has full discretion to change that. Am I misreading that?
No.
Because I've read this 100 times and that's what I read.
Section 3.3.
I will say this, that gives me major heartburn.
You want a time commitment in there?
No. I can see this phasing out where the developer, I'll play out a scenario. I'll be the devil's advocate for a while.
Okay.
The developer comes in and of course he's gonna develop the Marriott Slaterville Park first, because it has access to the roads and so forth. He could tire in the project and basically abort before the Far West piece ever happened, based on this language.
Right.
And also, if that's the extreme, the less extreme version is Far West phase doesn't start happening until 10 or 15 years from now.
So you would like the Far West phase to happen sooner rather than?
Yeah, and I understand, and I've heard the argument, we can't give you exact timetables. I understand it. But there's an element of concurrency between these two would be more reassuring to me.
Okay, I understand.
And I had a conversation with the mayor. So if we play out this bad scenario where as it said, the developer's business judgment, the Far West portion is delayed, but we have this agreement with Marriott Slaterville where we still have responsibilities for road maintenance and snow plowing and everything else. We could, in effect, be doing some maintenance for Marriott Slaterville for some unforeseen amount of time with nothing happening in Far West.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, yeah.
But
Well,
you're
I
also-
like to look at worst case scenarios because sometimes that's where the real world ends up. Okay,
You're also getting half of the fees up front too on the Slaterville side, so it's not like you're being
yeah, but
completely.
But,
thrown out.
but the what's gonna happen on the Far West side and when it's gonna happen is very much open.
So it would help you if there was a year limitation.
Well,
But,
And I'm not saying it's gotta be done in 5 years, it's just the way this reads, the developer's judgment controls everything. And we can sit here and wait, and the developer can say, in my judgment, I've chosen to wait another 5 years, or I've chosen to change the concept plan, et cetera, et cetera. And that gets to the second part I'd like to read. The concept plan is understood by the parties to be conceptual in nature. Got no problem with that. And sets forth only a potential layout of the project. Totally understand that. The next sentence bothers me. Developer may reconfigure or modify the project layout depicted in the concept plan based on the developer's business judgment. Now, we've had conversations, they do have to come in with a site plan, so they can't cram something down our throat. But it does leave open the question, they could ultimately do something very differently than what we thought was gonna happen. In other words, the original concept plan could be a wash, and we might never see anything that resembles it. We still have veto power, but that asks the question, how long do we wait till we finally get an alternative that in the developer's business judgment, we can accept? There's some loose ends there that on our side of the fence, we just don't know what for sure and when the development's gonna happen.
now, as far as the what you're getting, I think your veto power is kind of your remedy there.
Except that doesn't solve us setting on and seeing nothing happen on that property for
Right,
an
it
infinite
doesn't, it
period of
doesn't
time.
solve that nothing happened.
No,
It does
we do
show-
have veto power.
Right,
I understand that.
and so I think that as far as changing plans or veto power.
They're not gonna push something down our throat we don't like.
Right.
But we may set on that infinitum until we like what the alternative is, if there is an alternative.
Yeah, you could. And I mean, the developer under the terms of the agreement could also sell that portion. You could sell the Farr West portion to a different developer. They'd be bound by the terms of this agreement, but then you'll be working with another developer as well,
Right.
who
So
might have a different,
so the concept
timeline.
plan could bear no resemblance of what we're looking at right now.
it could in theory, yes. But-
Well, it's maybe a little more than in theory. I mean,
Well,
there's
I
a
mean-
potential for it.
There is the potential for it. And if you don't like what they propose or what they change, you say no. And then we're back to your situation of, well, then nothing's happening on it, and I get that.
No.
And that's where, hopefully in that situation, the developer who's in it to make money is going to say, well, if I
We-
give some to the city, then I can start building.
Right.
And build along and work with you guys.
And I understand that.
Yeah,
It's just that there's elements of uncertainty in this
sure.
that are unnerving to me.
I think with a big project like this, big commercial development anywhere with any entity, city or county, whatever it is, there's always a degree of uncertainty. There always is.
I just wished we had other alternatives to look at.
Right. And I think,
I really wished we had other alternatives to look at.
oh, sure, I get you. And I think you should bring that point up to the developer and let him know of your concern, maybe.
Oh, he's,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell him again.
Okay.
He's heard this 2 or
So-
3 times already.
So another question on that issue is if we change the zone, right, we go away from the master plan and we update it to this new zone. And it doesn't work out, we would have to potentially rezone it again if another developer
It depends on what the other developers propose.
proposing.
Right, maybe it's just gonna be a different development agreement. You still have the underlying zone and you just go into a development agreement with somebody else.
But that could be a problem in the future, right? We change this out and then they only do the Merritt Slaterville portion. And then in order for us to get it finished, we potentially got this zone that we kind of created jointly that isn't gonna mesh or isn't gonna vibe. I don't know.
Developer on the Far West portion, he'll be bound by this development.
Same rules.
You'll have to be
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
Yeah.
he'll be bound. So, yeah, and I think if they were to sell anything, they're bound by that zone, they're vested in the zone and this development agreement right away. So that would cover that. I think the problem is, if you went so strict as to require a definite concept plan and a definite time frame, you'd never get anything built.
No, but you're not, but you've got to hear me. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
saying that.
I know. You're just
Somewhere
saying concept
between
goal.
definite
Right.
and nothing is a lot of space.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay,
I get you.
He wants vague, at least vague.
With the word when as opposed to whether, help.
well, that
Yeah, I
weather
wanna be
did bother me a
devil's advocate
lot.
on the
If
other
I'm
side
a
too.
developer, I'm investing millions of dollars in this, I'm not gonna wait 20 years to build it.
You might if the market falls.
My devil's advocate would be,
What happened to Amazon? Amazon's in there.
Yeah, you've got an example right next door.
Look up, Bill.
It got built.
They're a lot bigger developer than you'll ever see otherwise.
but here's my thing is the devil's advocate is it can stay vacant like it is right now. If, I mean, that's the alternative. We don't get anything on it, period.
We have happy horses.
Darren, I'm sorry. They're city staff, so they can talk, but the public can't. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just don't want to start this discussion and then it run into the public hearing, so I'm sorry. So that's the other, I mean, then nothing, the city collects nothing off of that.
And all of this, like I said, in the ideal world, I wish there was an alternative floating out there.
Right.
That would be,
Are you talking alternative altogether?
I'm talking
or
about an alternative plan for that site. Right now, it's always been my understanding that it's been sitting there in fallow, basically unused since who knows how long. And it was my understanding that this was the only offer in town, the only option. So everything I've done is based on a choice between nothing happening and this happening. And what I am trying to say is, I really wish there were other choices.
But how do you say that when the property owner is coming to us tonight to try to do something in their
Who owns the property?
The guy that'll be here tonight owns the property.
Marriott, it's owned by two entities.
Yeah, and it's
So,
owned
but-
by the developer that's coming tonight.
He owns it.
Yes. So I guess I'm confused
News to
on.
me today as well.
What?
News to me as well.
I was gonna say,
He
that's,
signed the rezone application, they are the owners of the property.
It's on the
Yeah.
agenda.
So that's where I'm confused, where someone that owns their property is coming with their concept.
okay, I
How are we?
did not realize that much.
It just hasn't been recorded yet.
Oh, it hasn't been, okay, that's the problem. I didn't realize that.
Or the county hasn't updated their maps yet.
And ask him that tonight.
Well, if
He signed
if he's
the
the owner of the
rezone as the
property,
owner.
that changes things quite a bit, so.
What are we on that for, with Mary Slaterville in the agreements? What are we committing to help with while it's not developed, our agreement between us and Mary Slaterville?
Oh, before this development gets started?
Traffic lights and pedestrian crossings from what I saw.
Yeah,
It's like a mage.
it's a May, if the development doesn't go, if you guys and then city council said, no, we're not gonna do the development agreement, you guys aren't committing to anything.
No, but if we
Which
go
I
forward with
understood
it,
that,
if
yeah.
we go forward with it, but then the economy hits and it's just not gonna develop, are we on the hook for
No,
maintenance?
because then Far West and Merritt Slaterville can decide on traffic signals and crosswalk and that kind of thing. So they can decide. So, and then there won't be any sewer or anything, they're not dedicating any sewer to us.
So that's all the
Right.
yeah, okay,
That's it, the interlocal is a.
interlocal, okay.
Mhm.
From the developer.
So that could potentially change depending upon
This.
the development scenario that plays out for this. Okay, I didn't realize that. I thought we were locked into,
No,
okay, glad to hear that part.
yeah,
So they don't have to put in those road improvements?
Black Pine,
Yeah.
Black Pine has to put in the road improvements. There's some road improvements at the end of that agreement that talks about the city being responsible for.
Right, because
And those are city responsible that we're gonna work with
Well,
Mary.
that doesn't matter.
the
That's good
signals
to know.
and.
Yeah.
So 1100 and then 1900 that ties into that road that's supposed to have a gate on it. And if they're approving that road to have a gate on it,
I don't think there's.
Well, I raised that question, about 1900 West.
that's a secondary access.
You know, how much is,
Yeah, it's supposed to be an emergency access.
Didn't he tell tell us last time that they couldn't have a crash gate on that? Marshal wouldn't allow them.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that
I
either.
definitely didn't hear that.
It was.
Okay, that's a question that, because I raised that question and
Yeah.
I never got a clear
All that
answer.
traffic going out that way as well. They're split. So
And there's, that whole road's got a
that
whole
road
series
beyond
of-
that is not acceptable for
Yeah,
that.
It's a whole
It's now
series
on
of
the city
issues
to
with that
to
road.
upgrade it
It
to
becomes a
standards.
major egress.
It's the one that Jerry's nursery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the agreement says that we're responsible, Far West City's responsible to upgrade that. If we so choose,
Maybe.
May, yeah, we're not.
if we so choose. Hey, my other questions.
Yeah, keep going.
Section 3.4. The developer sells the land, is he still required to go through 1604-020? Of the city ordinance,
You're talking about selling to another
yeah.
developer.
Are they still required to go through the plating process and the planning commission?
No. that's already-
1604-020.
No, that's already been done. So this approval here, any new developer who buys into it or who sold property takes subject to this.
It runs with.
I get that,
Yep.
okay, but if they're selling to a different property owner, our ordinance very clearly says in 1604-20 that they have to go through the planning commission and plating process,
No.
okay? So basically,
Full trump.
we're giving them whatever the hell they want, whenever they want.
Well, basically, we're giving. them
Basically, that's what we're
this
giving them.
agreement, all the terms and conditions in this agreement.
Which is what I've just discussed.
Right.
Our clout, if you want to call it that, is the veto power.
Right.
That's our clout. Which is, may satisfy some people more than me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean, so, the other one is the building height, I still have an issue with that, okay? But you understand it's Far West, Mary Slaterville. The issue that I have is the 15-foot on top of it, so we have 50-foot plus 15 feet of additional that has to be screened, okay? So now we have a 65-foot high building,
Too high?
too high. So we've agreed to 50 feet, okay? But now they're saying that it has to be screened with a parapet wall or other thing, any mechanical equipment on top. And up to 15 feet. So now instead of 50 feet, we have a 65-foot building. Measured from finished grade, which I disagree with as well. Should be original grade, because they're gonna go in and fill a lot of that land in because of the wetlands and the depressions in it. Okay? So I have an issue there. It's my issue.
No, I will endorse that one about the height. That concerned me, particularly that 15, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it makes the building, the appearance of the building taller, whether you want to call it the building structure or air conditioning or whatever, it's now 65.
So you
not
would
50.
rather have a 50-foot building with a non-screen top and let all the mechanical equipment be visible?
I'd rather have a 35-foot building with a 15-foot,
Okay.
okay?
Keep everything down.
You want mine? That's,
Yeah.
you want mine? That's what I would, that's what me, okay? But that's me. It's nobody else, that's just me.
No,
Okay.
I just thought we have no choice.
I don't want to end up like 1100 back behind the Ogden Depot. Okay? Which is another issue because Lou asked them last week what type of buildings they're putting in, and they said tilt-ups. Okay? But yet all that stuff that they're proposing in their agreement isn't gonna matter because they're all gonna be concrete tilt-ups painted brown.
It's not true. There's plenty of tilt-ups that have all sorts of colors around here.
Earth tone colors,
Yeah.
brown. Okay?
Gray, white, brown, whatever you wanna call
So
it.
we'll have tilt-up buildings over there. Nothing other than tilt-ups.
And as far as height restriction, visibility, I mean, I'm confused on the, just because they're out of concrete, what's,
Just the
I don't care if
appearance of them looking taller, I guess.
It gets a block, you know, you've got a block
It
wall.
doesn't break up,
It doesn't look,
it doesn't break up the walls, it doesn't
no
give
windows, no-
sections in the walls.
go over to the Ogden Business Exchange, different colors, different
I
things
don't care about the
protruding.
colors as much as I'm looking at the building itself. Okay?
Yeah.
I thought it was curious that Slaterville imposed the earth tone color.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of other options that look as well. But that's what they want, that's what they want. I mean, it never made any sense to me.
Okay. And then it looks like you have to resolve section 7.10.
What's the result there?
I don't know. That's what was a note that was on there. On the one that I have.
What's your take on that road at 1900 West? Yeah, and access and all that. That was really vague to me.
Well, 710 you were looking at, correct?
Yeah, there was a note off to the side that said it had to be resolved. That was from Daniel.
I don't have that note on mine. On 710?
Might have been an older one that I had, that's what I got.
This is what was in the drop.
Yeah, okay.
While he's looking that up, can I just make a comment that I'm a little disappointed that we're at this work session and these questions are coming up now.
Well, that's not, mine have been repeated.
Well,
I've
but-
repeated everything. This is the third version of the
But
same.
hold on, but we sat in a work session just 2 weeks ago with the developer at this table. And none of the, and I know you hadn't read the agreement, but none of these questions were answered. You've had this all week, like none of, and we chose to set a public hearing in our last meeting. And now I feel like we're prepping to go into that with questions that we have met multiple times to go over.
I've never got a clear answer on 1900 West, ever.
And that asked tonight, but I'm just a little disappointed that 5 minutes before the meeting of which we scheduled a public hearing, there are questions that are unanswered when we've had months to review this.
But that's okay, because sometimes the public hearings.
Right, and that
it
is the
raises
time.
Questions that you still have to resolve.
I don't know if we're not coming totally prepared to work sessions or what is, but I just,
I admitted point blank that I hadn't read it.
and yes, you totally did.
And I also voted against it, approving it.
Right, I just.
Because I
want
hadn't
our
read
work
it.
Sessions to be productive,
So do I.
so.
But if I haven't read it, I'm not gonna approve it.
Yeah, and you
And the,
you did say that
you were
last one.
very clear that I come with a list of questions, and that's what I've done.
Right, and I did ask you of that, so I am happy that you did. We've, had months and months. But I appreciate all your input, and that's why we're here tonight. I just,
Sausages.
yes, exactly.
This is yours, right? I wasn't too grumpy. I know that.
You've seen the sign out there.
No, I haven't. I don't go driving around over there.
When you're gonna be old man, that's me.
I don't go driving around. Okay, I was gonna wait.
There you go, you're fine.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Would everyone stand for the pledge led by Lyle and a prayer led by Brandon?
Please repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll just stand for the prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful for this beautiful day. We're grateful for the city that we live in and the country that we live in. We're grateful for all the residents and those that were able to come and make it to this meeting. Please bless us that we'll be able to listen to those who have attended the meeting and be able to do what we need to as we move forward. We're grateful for all that thou hast given us, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, first, public comment about anything that is not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone in the public that has anything they'd like to say? If not, report from city council.
Good evening. City council met last week. It was somewhat of a short meeting. We had no public comments. I'm getting a little discouraged about that. I kind of like to hear a little more from the public other than going down the street or meeting them at the gas station or whatever. So in your communications, please ask your fellow citizens for input. Councilman Lyle gave, or Commissioner Lyle, I'm sorry,
You know who we are.
gave a report for the planning commission, and we appreciated that. As far as business goes, the council approved a conditional use permit for David Shug for a 4,000 square foot accessory building, as recommended by the council or the commission. There was no other business that we conducted. So the council reported on assignments. I reported on the attendance of various committee meetings that we go to. In particular, legislative policy committee meeting. We had one last month. They had one last week, and or this week, and we'll have one next month. As the legislatures start preparing their bills for the next session, at the beginning of the year, the Utah League of Cities and Towns will get a lot of that verbiage and visibility of those bills, I think, that we'll be looking at in November. So next month, when I report, maybe in the second planning commission meeting, I hope to be able to give you a lot more information on what you're gonna be seeing regarding land use in the cities and municipalities. Let's see, Katie reported on a progress in Mountain View Park. It looks like this coming week, they should be ready to start putting in the new playground equipment from what we understood this morning. Katie also reminded everyone to vote. If you're decided on one thing or another, that's the only way to really make your voice heard, so to speak, is to vote. So we highly recommend you do that. There was a reminder to everyone with regarding trunk or treat coming up on the 28th, and also the Veterans Celebration at Smith's Family Park on November 11th. Boyd reported on the flock camera contract that's been recently settled, and that sometime in the near future we'll be getting two additional cameras? Three. So that'll be a good, that's something the average citizen's not gonna know or pay attention to, but it helps the communication between the different cities and the different law enforcement agencies when it comes to doing their job and more efficiently. So that's a good thing. He also reported on the senior citizen director interviews. Apparently they went well last week. We have a new director who'll be starting on Monday. I don't know her name,
Angie.
Angie. So she'll be ready to go starting Monday. Bob reported on the continuing progress of the CERT program. Things are developing quite well. It was good to see him get involved and get going on that. He attended the Weber County Preparedness Meeting, and so there was some learning and communication that was exchanged there. He also reported on the RAMP grant meeting, which Lyle and I also attended. But it's always good to go and hear what they expect to hear from us with regards to our applications for RAMP grants. And so that was encouraging as well. Mayor Fippen thanked the council members for their support and willingness to attend the various meetings. Reported on some of those things that he's involved with WACOG and Wasatch Front. And we then adjourned at 6:55. The only additional thing that we had a CRA meeting prior to. There's just kind of a hold on with regards to any development of property that would be involved in the community reinvestment agency. So that's kind of on hold, but we're staying active with that with regards to keeping our eye on those parts of the properties within the city that need attention with regards to infrastructure or future development. That's it. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. Where's the trunk or treat? Is it gonna be here or at Smith Family Park? Here like it is always? Okay,
It is, yeah.
just wanted to confirm.
Same perimeter we had last year.
Okay.
I have one thing. I'm not an elected official, so I can say this. This is regarding RAMP. While we have an audience, the RAMP grants, I ask you to please vote to continue that RAMP tax. It's 1 penny out of every $10 that is granted to the RAMP, which is recreation, help me out, Mayor, recreation, arts,
Music
and parks.
Recreation, arts, recreation.
Yeah, just so you know, the Mountain View Park is being completely replaced right now. Half of that money came from RAMP, from the money through the RAMP funds. The other half came from the National Park Service via the Utah Outdoor Recreation Program. Smith Family Park is another one that benefited greatly with the RAMP. It's only a penny out of every $10. And they vote on it every 10 years, and this is the year that they vote on it. And it's Proposition 19. It's the last item on your ballot. And I promise you, it's very, very beneficial. And the city we're right now working on replacing we're getting pricing right now to replace the equipment at the playground equipment at the Far West Park there where the city shops are. We're working on that right now for next year's grant season. And we're getting numbers and stuff. So like I said,
They did indicate that in
It
the
is.
past, they've
right.
issued more than $64 million.
They do.
If you think about how far that's gone in the various
Right.
cities and what the citizens can
Yeah, and
enjoy
it
and
really is.
participate in because
I just had to put that plug in while we had an audience because it really is a wonderful program. And we as a city can't do these programs or do these improvements without that ramp, without those matching funds. So there's my plug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What time does it start, Mayor? It's trunk or treat.
Say, 5:30 parking.
Okay.
Yep.
Just because we have an audience, thought I would just.
Thank you. Okay, next, we are going to move on to our first business item, and that is a public hearing to consider the approval of the West Creek Master Development Agreement located on the south boundary line of Far West City off of Cottonwood Drive. Do we have a motion to go?
I motion we open a public hearing to consider approval of the West Creek Master Development Agreement located on the south boundary line of Far West off of Cottonwood Drive.
Well, second.
Motion by Brandon, second by Darren. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? And so we're gonna ask for the public to come up in full transparency to the public. For anyone that does not know this, I am employed by Black Pine as of August 1st. I am not a voting member of this commission. But just so everyone knows that there's everything in all clear, they are my employer. However, I do not have a vote on this commission. So that being said, we welcome you guys to come up and say anything you need to. Please state your name and address, and please be respectful. Is there anyone that wants to start off?
Hello, City Planning Commission members, audience. My name is Darren Burnett. I currently live at 1858 Heritage Ranch, beautiful place that was developed years ago, and I love living there, and enjoy being a current resident. I guess first off, I do have a question for the developers or the owners of the land. It was just brought up that
Okay, sorry, keep going. Question, we're not gonna have a back and forth, so the developer just needs to remember his questions and he can answer them at the end.
just so I can be clear with the owner of the property is now the developer.
That I will let him actually answer,
I think
just
that's
to
a fair,
clear
I
that
think-
up.
I think it's a fair question.
Just say yes, or sorry, whatever the,
Do we own the property now? Both Far West parcel, the 88 acres, and then Marriott Sladeville, the 44 acres.
Yes, we own
sorry, come up. I'm sorry, I wasn't gonna have a back and forth.
I think it's
but
just good to have some
this would
questions
be-
so we
well,
all know where we're at.
This would be an important one. The rest, I don't want their back and forth.
The answer is, we currently own all of the ground that was previously owned by the Marriotts. We will take ownership of the Blair parcel, which are the two middle parcels that are be about 30 acres in the next couple of weeks. We have binding contractual control, and we'll be taking ownership of that in the next few weeks. And then we also control contractually, and we'll be taking ownership of the remaining Blair property in Marriott Sladeville as well. Yes.
Okay. I do have one more question for the developer, if I may.
Okay.
It's just good to have these questions answered, so it's easier to go through this whole process, right? So, under the current zoning of Far West, your intent is to develop it to become, under the new zone. You're trying to get it approved to a new zone, and your plans is to develop it according to that zone change. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, would you consider doing any development if that was not approved? Back with the current underlying zoning, so right now it's considered zoning A1 commercial, or future would be potential mixed use.
Yeah,
So you'd be open to doing those?
I mean, we've explored all options here.
So you have explored options?
Yeah.
Okay. Has that been public, to the public? Have there been any other solutions or concepts that were brought forth?
Yeah, we've had, I don't know the exact.
Just
number.
come up, Daniel, sorry.
Sorry.
She's just not gonna be able to hear you. Stay up and then we'll have you present after.
I don't know the exact number of public or public work sessions we've had on this project, but it's been 5 or 6, 7 maybe, over the past 18 months that we've been working on the project.
Okay.
So between Marriott, Sladeville, where this concept has been public, they've actually passed their ordinance and passed the development agreement last week.
I was there
Or
for
a
that
couple
meeting.
weeks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So over the last couple of years, we've been working on it. I think there's been at least 10 plus public meetings that we've talked about this.
Have there been any concepts of residential put forth for everyone to see?
Yeah, so we talked about residential going on this and doing a mixed-use project. We looked at the traffic counts of what that would generate.
Mhm.
The trip generations for mixed-use projects in that location would have been about 13,000 cars a day.
Based off of what number of units?
So I don't recall the exact number of units, but we did a typical mixed-use project that was in line with the zoning code. And we presented that in one of the public sessions. So it would have been a project that how we'd presented, it would have been aligned with the current city code in a mixed-use zone. And and then we had a traffic trip generation study done by, a traffic engineer
Okay.
that did the traffic study for the Amazon building in Marriott Sladeville.
Any
And
kind
it
of
was,
estimated number of lots or number of units? Just
I don't recall.
because that could
off the top of my
vary,
head.
because you could
Yeah.
do a mixed-use development and have 14 lots.
Yeah.
That's only 14 people making so many trips.
Yeah, I
Within
mean,
that
it's
zone, you
in
could
Far
do-
West,
you
it's
could do
90
hundreds, 50.
acres. So it's 90 acres in Far West. So we basically just took what is in the current code and just matched densities
Okay.
that would be allowable under code.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't be us asking for any variation from the existing code.
Mhm.
It was us saying, okay, what does your code allow? Here we have 90 acres. We're going to take the density of what's allowed for commercial, residential, et cetera, and then the trip generation. So what we're proposing tonight is a third of the trip generations that the mixed use zone would have produced.
Okay, so you were probably going off the max amount with that trip generation?
We were just going off what was in the existing code.
Okay, because if you're saying you took a third, you probably took a third off of
No, that what we're proposing tonight, which is the ITZ zone,
Mm-hmm.
generates roughly a third of the amount of the trip generations that the in-place zoning code of Far West would have generated. So we're trying to do something that would actually produce less traffic than what the city code would currently allow.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. That helps the public understand maybe a few of the things that they're trying to do. Now, with this, Far West, I'm gonna step back just a second. So I came here, it's been 19 years ago, and I have a family of 5, and luckily I found a house in the Mountain View subdivision. Great subdivision to live in, and we're lucky that there are people that come into to cities and develop and give us all a place to live, right? Everyone here has a place to live because a development occurred. We wouldn't have a city without residents. Now remember, residents is a key part of any kind of development in a city. You have to have residents there. So I come in and I found a great place to live. The Marriott's developed Mountain View subdivision. There's a wonderful park there that was designated for the use of the citizens. What a great benefit, right, to a community to be able to have residential and have open space that benefits all. We've had many fireworks, many events, individual families can go there. There's soccer, that place is full. That's a benefit of that development. So keep that in mind going forward. My profession is a landscape architect. 23 years of design. I've done thousands of designs in residential. Solution, problem solving, looking at how and the best use of a property. So I look at things a little differently. So when I come in and say, okay, wow, that was a good planned development that I first lived in, that comes from experience. So here we are today, we're looking at a big parcel of land in Far West that the current zone is based off a master plan. And a master plan, a general plan, is something that the citizens are all agreeing on, that they think this use of this property is something that benefits the whole as a community. There's a lot of time, a lot of money spent to create a general plan. Now, every city I've worked in, city councils, planning commissions, they use that as a Bible. That's their standard. If they do not, they deviate from that, there could become some serious issues. So here we are. We have that in place. A1, commercial, or future zone mixed use. This property is now being asked to be rezoned to something that the city doesn't want. Now, I'm going to address a few things, the benefits of why keeping it or using it as an A1 or a commercial or mixed use could still happen. There's a solution. It's already there. Why not find a solution that works? And it can work with Marriott Slaterville. I know this is a tricky project. I've been involved. I've come to several of these work session meetings. You see me. I think the developers, I'm grateful for developers. I think they can do some great things. It's just looking at the property. Each property has its unique opportunities that has the drawbacks, but solutions can be found. Now, the developers have proposed maybe some other projects or other solutions with the mixed use, and maybe it hasn't penciled for them. And that's okay. If it doesn't pencil, it doesn't pencil. But that doesn't mean that the Far West citizens have to change their ordinance to suffice a developer. A developer comes in to make money. That's what they do. A good developer would look at it and say, let's come up with more solutions that's going to benefit the city. If there are those, let's explore, let's sit back before this changes from the current zone to something else that, frankly, I think if the city residents knew more about this zone change, there would be a lot more people here. I know it's a public, you throw it out there, but I think maybe there's a few individuals in here that we're lucky to understand when you get something in the mail and it has a bunch of parcel numbers and that's it. A lot of times you don't know what it means, right? But if they really knew what was happening here, the potential of this property and seeing the options, I believe in choice. We live in a free nation. We need to see the options before we say, okay, wow, let's just go down this road, because we feel like that's the direction that maybe the developer potentially has kind of funneled his time and direction that way, because that's the most benefit for him, for them. Not being, it's just the way it is. So if we look at as a whole.
Excuse me, just out of respect for everyone else, we do need to have like a 5-minute time limit.
Okay, if others are willing to give me their time, is that fine?
How about, oh goodness, that's a nice way to ask.
This is important, and I think.
Yeah. Can you be done in the next 3 minutes?
Probably not.
Okay, how much
I
longer?
have a list of comments.
How much longer is your list?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is the interesting thing. We have a public hearing, and there's one chance for the public
Yes.
to voice their opinion on something that's so crucial.
Usually they are all timed, so I really need to keep you to all.
But
so
if
you
others
have-
give me their time, would that be allowable? If you're saying each person has 5 minutes,
Yes.
if I have certain individuals in the audience that will say, hey, I'd like to give Darren 5 minutes, would that be fair?
You have 4 more minutes and we'll reassess at the end.
Okay, we'll see what happens here. Okay. All right, so looking at, so there is another solution. There are other options. And so I feel like what could happen if the developers were open to saying, okay, hey, they worked so hard on this concept and I think it's great that they put the time and effort into it. That's where they see their value and that's okay. But if they said, hey, how about we did that type of development in Marriott Slaterville, because that's been approved. Are they open to saying, hey, let's work with somebody else that does something to Far West that meets something that Far West can be happy with, excited about, that gets the benefits back to the citizens, and they are all for it. If there was a connection, I know that circulation is a big issue between the two cities. And so my proposal is looking at, say, hey, you guys you can do what you want to do in that section of Marriott Slaterville, but look at another solution that's in Far West. I don't know if that works with your numbers or whatever it may be, but I think that's, as Far West citizens, we've got to look at, okay, why are we giving up Far West and letting it become something else that is not on the underlying, back to the master plan, okay? So we can make it, this takes away the opportunity to create a dynamic residential area from the current zoning. And there is viable solutions. And I would propose, I have a solution. I have, I think I would ask that you table this and consider other options before you just say, hey, yes, we're going to blanket open and say it's a zone change. I have a lot of concerns about the development agreement. There's a lot of things that are pro-development and less for citizens of Far West. Other things that my concerns, or things that, as far as residents of Far West, is you're expanding the warehouse over to the adjacent property of the fish burns, for example. So you have a 150-foot buffer zone that you're saying is so I can't build a 50-foot building within that 150 buffer. Now that's pretty typical in development. You're gonna have a buffer with any kind of non-conforming uses. So today I walked over there to the Amazon. You know how far away Amazon is to Far West property? 410 feet. So you think you're getting a good buffer, 150 feet, but you have a 50-foot building that's actually raised 4 feet higher than the existing grade. So Greg had a point, he had a question about the elevation. Suddenly now the residents, you're bringing Amazon right next to our Far West residents. And so some people say, well, gosh, why would we have a residential development going out by the Amazon? Well, there's a bigger buffer there than what the proposed development is now proposing. And so I want to bring that up to your knowledge, so you know that. Heavy trucks impacting the roads, a long-term cost effect for the Far West citizens. Like open space, that's now changed because the open space, you look at, we have 88 acres in Far West. Marriott-Slaterville has 44. In the current plan, they have their concept plan shows a road. They're giving a buffer space, which I just addressed. That's hardly any space. Marriott-Slaterville is getting an 8-acre potential park for their future use for their citizens. We're not getting anything. I think that's something that needs to be considered in this with the open space. And, you know, besides that, the open space, when you develop this land, what's it going to become? Warehouses, just like Amazon, because Amazon is a warehouse. Warehouses are not allowed in the current zone. That's why they're here to ask for a rezone, because it's not a use in the commercial or agricultural land. So they're asking for something that's a non-conforming use in an underlying master plan zone. So they're asking for something that doesn't even apply. It's not even based. Again, that's going non-conforming with that. So they're asking for that to happen. So what's going to happen? Is that going to beautify our Far West city? No, there's going to be thousands of people that drive by Far West on I-15, and this is what they're going to see. It's a sea of large buildings, asphalt. There's no standards for beautifying the land because there's no trees in this development agreement. It's like a buffer. I'm going to do a buffer. There's nothing that specifies adding vegetation for buffer zones to beautify. Those are probably some concerns that people should think about. Can anyone give me another 5 minutes?
No.
Darren,
Okay.
sorry.
Several other things, but anyways, I guess at this point, I'm asking for you to start to consider an option to just table this and look at another solution. And I'd love to sit down with the developers and say, hey, can we work something out? Yeah, you guys can do the Marriott-Slaterville, how it is. We'll do a zone. We'll do something that works within our zone. So thank you. I'd like to spend more time.
Please.
Thank you.
Sit down.
You just said please.
Yeah, please.
You want me to
Please sit
continue?
down. Yeah, I want you to sit down.
All right.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Darren.
Board, I recommend that all the members of the public who want to make a comment, come and make the comment, because I will recommend to this body that we do not allow any members of the public here today to give up their time for any other person, because I do not want the city to be in the position of anybody claiming after the fact, after the meeting, the city didn't give them an opportunity to let their voice be heard because they gave their time to somebody else. So for that reason, I will recommend that we do not take that approach. So if anybody wants to give comment, give it.
Would it be beneficial for the developer to come and present? I should have done that first, but Daniel, do you want to come up and just give us an overview of the project? I'm sorry, and the mayor gets at me at this every time. I get excited about the public and
Geneva,
just goes, yes.
can I make a recommendation? Can you identify yourself as the city attorney?
Yes, Farr City.
You didn't do that when you came up on the microphone, so.
Sorry.
Oh, good. Daniel Stevens, representing Black Pine. Thanks for having us here tonight. as I briefly said earlier, this is a culmination of, I think, about 2 years worth of work. This is a complex project in that I don't think I've ever done a development agreement that has two cities involved. And there's a lot of complications that come with that, from infrastructure, access, circulation, things like that that have been talked about. So just maybe to kind of take the public back in how we got here, where we're at today. So Black Pine is a development company that does a lot of different asset classes. We do the warehousing style projects. We built buildings in Ogden, in the Ogden Business Exchange. We've done industrial projects in West Weber County. We're also working on a master plan community in the county. So we also do master plan communities and residential. We've done multiple subdivisions in the county, both in Ogden City and Marriott-Sladeville City. We've done projects in Perry. So we kind of go the whole spectrum in terms of residential, industrial, and the like. So we did explore, when we came together on this, we did explore a lot of different options. We read through the existing zoning that was in place in your general plan. We laid out a lot of different concepts on how that could work. And we met with all the stakeholders in and around the area. We actually met with quite a few of the landowners that back this property in Heritage to understand what their concerns could be for potential development on this property, and making sure that their voices were heard early on in the process, given that they would be the ones that would be most impacted. We'd also talked to Marriott-Sladeville.
Hey,
And-
the public can't talk while he's
So
talking.
Marriott-Sladeville obviously is going to take the vast majority of the traffic. I would say 99% plus of the traffic is going to flow through Marriott-Sladeville. And so they needed a big voice in this, in that they're going to be carrying a lot of the burden of that traffic into their city. And so meeting with all the various stakeholders and understanding what that meant. And that's why I referenced the trip generation study that we did. And that was in large part because we took what the general plan had in Far West, which was that mixed use zone, laid out a project that would have commercial, residential, and a mixed use component of projects that we have done and executed on in other places. And we laid it out and did a trip generation study. And that's what I referenced. It generated roughly 13,000 cars a day. So as you can imagine, Marriott-Sladeville wasn't excited about those numbers. To be clear to the public, Marriott-Sladeville is not required to provide access through their city to come up to this property. So in order to get Marriott-Sladeville on board, it had to be something that they could wrap their minds around and be comfortable with. And that's why it was a multiple stakeholder process, and we engaged the public early. And so that's why I wish I had the number, but I know it's been many public work sessions. We've had joint work sessions with the City Council and Planning Commission over the last year, just working through all the various issues and presenting all the various issues and trying to discuss what could be done and how all the stakeholders could have a voice and be able to get to an outcome that would work for everybody. And so that's what brought us to this point. I think the trip generations for the product type that we're proposing is substantially less than what the mixed use zone would have produced. And so that's why Marriott-Sladeville was comfortable with the idea. The idea of doing a joint development agreement, there's things in there that the two cities are going to be working out in an interlocal agreement should this go through, in terms of how long-term maintenance would be worked and fees. We've agreed to pay the higher of the two cities and fees, and so that those would be split between the two cities, but we're burdening ourselves to the higher of the two. Far West City has a 10% open space requirement. We've agreed to do a 20% open space requirement across the entire project so that we could, because that's what Marriott-Sladeville required. So there was a lot of things that we did to help bridge the gap between the two cities on both cost of infrastructure, ongoing, I guess, not initial, that since we're putting that in, but long-term maintenance, access for this parcel in Far West, working with Marriott-Sladeville to come up with a solution they could get comfortable with, and then the open space, maximizing that. And it was brought up, there was a change to the open space, and I sent out a note that I think Geneva forwarded to you guys, but there are 2 schools that exist on that 1500 West. And they were one of the stakeholders that we engaged pretty early in the process to understand what their needs were. And so that's why the development agreement articulates a few traffic calming measures. We as the developer will also do things similar to what Amazon did, which is trying to direct our traffic to the west, especially truck traffic, so we don't mix school traffic with truck traffic. And so we can do a few things in our CC&Rs and just direction and wayfinding that will try to push more people to the west. There'll be a signal that will be installed over there. So naturally, trucks like to go to where signals are. It's easier for them to circulate if they're not having to wait in queue to try and make a right-hand turn without a signal. So there's a lot of things that we can do as a developer to try to help mitigate that concern. But one of the things that they really wanted was a buffer. And it would be a buffer for any kind of development that would go here. And so as we presented the buffer zone that was on the initial plan, Marriott Slaterville asked if we would be willing to cluster more down in that area. So you can see we've eliminated the buffer zone on the Willard Canal in Marriott Slaterville. And we pushed all of that down into that area. And then the trail system that we've agreed to install along the Willard Canal and then tying into 1500 West. It's a 10-foot trail. The developer will put it in. And so the buffer zone along the heritage border did not change. The buffer zone along the Willard Canal did shrink a little bit. It accommodates the trail system, but some of that was pushed down to cluster next to the school just to ultimately get them comfortable. So I think that's high level. There are a lot of things that will be governed in CC&Rs. We do have landscaping design guidelines that we are required in the development agreement. A lot of those deferred to the Marriott Slaterville City Code, which if you've read Marriott Slaterville's landscaping policy code, it's quite extensive. You guys, I know you probably haven't, but we spent a lot of time in it. They dictate all the way down to caliper of tree thickness of cobblestone, things like that. So it's pretty extensive. And, we as a development team are currently in the process of reviewing a lot of different developments that we want to bring here, or like the styles of development that we want to bring here for landscaping and things. This is a park that we intend to own forever. And it's easier for us to invest more upfront, to have better landscaping and things like that, to make it something that we want to own and maintain for a really long time. So, and that's our intent, is to own this business park forever. So we're going to invest a lot more than you would see if somebody that were just coming in to flip out of it. That's kind of high level. Happy to jump back and answer questions when the time arises. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have more public? State your name and address, please.
My name's Rick Polson. I live at 1279 North, 1700 West. And just a little background. I was here, stood in the middle of the street with Kent Chuggin and Jimmy when they were talking about the inception of Far West. So I have a really good idea of what their intention was, okay? And after that, I moved around a little bit. I spent time in Clinton on their variance committee and then on the planning commission. I actually developed the master plan for Clinton. And it's still pretty much the same one that they had. And, I would like to say, wow, that really worked out cool and stuff like that, because we grouped all of those places that we were going to have commercial development and so forth. And I got to tell you, I was proud, okay? But I drove down there just the other day and I'm looking at the people that are trying to get in and out of Kohl's and all of those places. Because let me tell you, I had no idea what was going to happen there, okay? And neither did the people that were around that, okay? But at least they knew what was approved for that area, okay? You're getting ready to change something in that area. And the people that bought their property and live in that area, okay? When they did that, they had the opportunity, whether they took it or not is something else, okay? But they had the opportunity to go look at the master plan and decide, do I want to live next to this stuff? I will promise you that most of the people that moved into Clinton, right around those places, when they started putting up all those stores and stuff, they would not have moved there had they had any idea what was going on, okay? I'm just asking you to think about this. You're giving them an opportunity to do something different. And they've given us an idea what they're gonna wanna do. But more than just what they wanna do can be done once you change that. All right, and you, as a planning commission, have a responsibility to take into consideration those people's thoughts and their situation and protect their right to what they thought they were gonna get. All right, I wished I'd have done a better job. I hope you don't end up in the same thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just take a moment of time. I'm late and apologize for another meeting.
State your name and address.
Oh, sorry, Randy Gangwer, 1720 West, 1300 North, Far West. So you may already discuss this, but I don't know what the plan is for the Amazon building and why that can't be used for some of this industrial business they're discussing. I don't think we have access as a road to that area at this point, do we?
No, we don't.
We would have to create one, which we would, I think, need one. We'd like, if it's gonna be part of our community, that we have access to that. And I really didn't hear this gentleman, I came, not quite, I don't think, at the very end of what they're actually gonna put there. They have ideas, I heard that, but I'd kind of like to know what the ideas really are and what benefits that will be for us as a community, of course, for the city. So that's just kind of my idea. I know I'm out in the wing here, and again, I apologize for being a little late, but I want us to have a good city. That's why I moved over here years ago, 25 years ago, and I love it. And I kind of think we have an industrial park over here, if I'm pointing the right way. And do we need another one? Thank you.
Mark Berger, 1722 West, 1300 North. Lived in Far West 32 years. Our first home was behind Cal Ranch for 10 years. And then we moved over into the Mountain View subdivision. We've been there now for, yeah, wow. Anyway, quickly, I have an advantage that maybe some of you do not have. I work for a company called Siemens Industrial. Siemens Industrial is the electrical power division, and they provide all of the gray boxes that power that warehouse that Amazon has. We're their number 2 provider for electrical. So I have the opportunity to see their plans nationally and a couple times worldly. So I see some things that goes on, and unfortunately, I'm not part of Marriott Slaterville, or I would have had some major heartache with that city, putting that big warehouse there, especially when you had all that square footage sitting in there in the Ogden Depot. That was easy to get going and easy to get moving. Anyway, side note, please, we moved into that subdivision we were at because of this plan. And again, I've been with Siemens for in Far West for 32 years. So I've heard a lot of things, talked to a lot of old timers and a lot of different people. And the plan sounded great, so we stuck around. After that first 10 years leaving behind Cal Ranch, I wanted to move to Tremont. But there was a few individuals, and my spouse, one of them, kept us here because of the plan. So I'm hoping you guys will follow that as the Bible. But if there is changes, then please, oh please, because this is the first time I've heard about all this. Now, the other thing I've heard is a lot of things about how we're going to create plans and paths and all this different stuff from the developers, but I haven't heard an end game. What's the end game? Because once you unleash and undo that, there's no way bringing the genie and putting him back in the bottle. So I want to hear what the end game is. Thank you.
Daly. I live at 1255 North, 1700 West. And my back yard now is an Amazon building that I hear people racing at. I hear all type of the night. I hear screeching wheels. That's all I hear, and massive lights everywhere from over there. It's nothing but an eyesore. And plus, when I go to work, there's so much traffic at that intersection, get on the freeway in the mornings from the schools and everything else, that is backed up like you would not freaking believe every morning. And plus, I'd like a place for my kids to actually have a home, not a big warehouse sitting out there. That's my plan. I've been in Far West for 37 years. Me and my wife moved here from Plain City to Far West 37 years ago. And that was never in our plan to have a warehouse, or Far West's plan to have massive warehouses sitting out there. I'd like to have a place that we can call Far West our home and still stay here. I don't think that's the way we're going right now. And so, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Mary Allen, 1106 North, 1900 West. Very nervous, sorry. I live on that frontage road and I moved there for that purpose. I bought 10 acres of land so that I wouldn't be real close to anybody. And I love living there. I've lived in this area for 45 years now. And that's been my home over there for 30, and I really don't want the road opened up. I lived on that frontage road because it was a dead end. And I enjoy that. I know that the things have to be developed, but I'd really like to see it developed into something nice. I don't like the Amazon building either. And I don't like the light shining in my yard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
My name is Ivalou Burnett. I live at 1858 Heritage Ranch Drive. And as I've been recently involved in the political process this year, I've met with some different state officials, and just hearing about the need for housing and the mandate that our current governor is asking. And I know a lot of people that love Far West and would love to stay here and want their kids to live here, and would love to see some additional development for housing to make that possible. And right now there is a shortage, and I see that that area right there that we're talking about that could be considered a beautiful residential area for current citizens and future citizens of Far West. And just to be able to follow that mandate of our current governor would be wonderful. So I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If there's no one else, we'll have the developer come up again and answer some of the questions that have been asked, if he would like. Okay. And then we will close the public hearing.
No, happy to. You guys are gonna jog my memory, so chime in if I miss something, please. So maybe to hit lighting. So we follow a pretty strict lighting. It's dark skies, so lights can't project. They can only emanate, they have a certain area that they can cover, but it can't project onto somebody else's property. It's a pretty strict requirement. It's called dark sky. We actually follow it. I live up in Eden. I grew up in Far West, but live in Eden now. That's dark sky. So it's similar to that, where your light shouldn't touch somebody else's property. Is kind of how we look at it. So that was one of the questions that was brought up, was lighting. And in terms of use, if you think about, if we were to do mixed use, Marriott Slaterville would not provide circulation through their cities, which would make it so all of the traffic and cars, the 1,300 or 13,000 trip generation, would go off down the frontage road. or we'd have to find another route to go to loosen that up. So we looked at that, I guess, is I want the public to understand, like, I really appreciate public involvement in the process. I think it helps create better projects, but I do want them to know that we spent a large amount of time studying this and trying to figure out what was the best use in residential for this area, just given how it's on a dead end street and effectively landlocked. Just wouldn't work. First, a lot of the concerns that they had of trip generate, having cars going down 1900. So that's one, uses. So the nice thing about development agreements and zoning ordinances is it has a list of permitted uses. So a lot of people get concerned that, okay, once you approve the development agreement and the zoning change, that the developer can basically do what they want. And that's not technically true. We actually have really strict requirements around us, both in the development agreement and in the zoning code. And the city we'll see, they'll have multiple touch points with us even after this. So the uses are dictated in the development agreement or the zoning code. In the case of Far West City, all of the permitted uses would fall under the ICZ zone that you guys have in place that we're requesting to be rezoned to. So anything, we'd have to provide businesses that fall on the list. If we tried to do something outside of that list, we would have to come back in and get a approval for you all, from you all for that. You also have the city will have a lot of other touch points with us going forward. We have a subdivision plat process, there's a site plan review process. So there's a lot of touch points. So the developer, we're pretty limited on what we can and cannot do within the confines of code and development agreement. So that maybe helps with that. What are some of the other questions I missed?
Could I ask, what benefits from your proposal of your development is gonna help the residents of Far West?
Yeah.
What are you giving back to the, as far as?
Yeah.
Why are you going this way? What benefits, for Far West?
Sure.
And the other question is, if it's landlocked, why can't you look at the land?
Because
The developer usually looks for between multiple locations of it. Why would you go to a landlocked land and start work going? That's where it raises my.
Okay, that's the end. You can answer those two questions.
Okay, cool. Sure. So landlocked, it's not landlocked for the Blair family. The Blair family owns all the land in Marriott Slaterville, and they own the 30 acres in the middle and Far West. And so we're a development partner with the Blair family. So for them, it's not landlocked. For the city, it is landlocked. So it's not that we identified this piece and then tried to solve it that way. It's just working with the Blair family as our partner on that. And so that maybe answers that question. The benefits to the city, there are a lot. I mean, I think the key ones here are property tax. Right now, it's not generating anything. It's in Greenbelt. If you go to a commercial zone, the increment in property tax should be pretty substantial. Where in this one, a lot of the burden will be on Marriott Slaterville for road infrastructure and things like that. You'll benefit from property tax and not have a lot of excess burden. And some of those roads will likely be private. And then we all are putting in the open space buffers, the trail system. But the main one to focus on, there is potential for sales tax. A lot of the businesses that we put in these buildings do have people, like a sales area where they face the public, they'll sell goods to the public. So it could generate a healthy amount of sales tax, but property tax is probably the biggest one. So.
Thank you. I know while we're in the public hearing, Lou just wants.
I'd like to have you clarify for them how this is going to impact traffic on 1900 West.
Yeah. So as contemplated right now, there would be, there wouldn't be truck traffic on 1900 West. I think restriction could be put in place for that. As we understand it, and again, this is a fire marshal decision. As we understand it, 1900 West cannot be closed. Initially, when we talked with the various cities about this, a concept was put in place to actually put a gate on 1900 so that no traffic could exit to the north. And the fire marshal, from what I understand, would not allow that. So there needs to be some circulation, but again, that's not our decision to make. It would definitely be a city working with the fire district and Marriott Slaterville to make that decision.
So potentially there could be a substantial amount of traffic going down 1900, leaving your project?
I mean, and if you look at the trip generation study, I don't think that there are very many cars going down 1900 West because it's not really a true access point for, most people. It's not off an exit. It's to get to 1900. It's kind of buried within the Far West City. So you have to know where it's at in order to go down it. I think most of the trips that would be generated on 1900 would be from the local community that would be coming south to get to the freeway, less our part going north to get deeper into Far West. I think if you think about, people trying to get to work, trucks trying to deliver or get deliveries or send out deliveries, they want the shortest route possible and they want to get there the fastest they possibly can. And the shortest route and the fastest possible way is going to be going to 400 on the freeway. So.
Okay, I think we'll have our discussion with him. Okay, you can sit down for a second. Is there any last public that has not already commented that would like to comment before we close the public hearing? Okay. We have a motion?
I move we close the public hearing.
Motion by Lou. Second by Brandon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, recommendation on our side for our discussion. I'm assuming Daniel, we have some questions for Daniel? Come on up, Daniel. We'll start with Lou because he looks ready.
Yeah.
Well, I've asked him every question I could think of, but for the public record, I do want to express two concerns, which you've heard.
Sure.
And there is both language in the development agreement, but I just want to make it known to the public, I have concerns with this language. And the first one is the developer reserves all discretion to determine whether to develop a particular portion or phase of the property based upon the developer's business judgment. I have major concerns with that. We've talked about it.
Sure.
The other one that I want to put on public record is a statement in the agreement. The developer may reconfigure or modify the project layout depicted in the concept plan based upon the developer's business judgment. To me, they're very nervous. They're very loose statements. There's no guarantee. And we've talked about the fact that we will be approving site plans and so forth. But it does leave open the question of what will actually develop and when will it be developed. So I just wanted to make it known to the public. That's my stance. And I don't need to ask you questions because you've been very willing to answer my questions multiple times.
Do you want me to address those so the public can hear?
It might be useful for the public because you've heard it from me enough times.
Yeah, no, happy to address those too. So in terms of timing of development, a lot of times we come in, this is a large swath of ground. A lot of people get concerned it's going to change overnight. This is a development it's going to take many, many, many years to go through. And so, what we do in terms of timing, we don't know which piece of ground is going to make the most sense to develop at any given point in time. And we don't know what the market is going to be and if it will absorb the type of product that we want to put into place. And so we have to reserve that right to be able to build, buildings on which parcels we want to build on in the time that we want to build on. And it's just a private property, argument from our perspective as a private property owner. We can develop our private property when we want to develop it and how we want to develop it within the confines of your code and the development agreement. So that would answer your first question. The second question is, that statement's perhaps a little misleading because there are requirements of us in the concept plan, in the development agreement. What it doesn't articulate is within the footprint of the ground, but like the main body of the ground, we have some potential public roads laid out just so people could see what it could potentially turn into. But the main roads coming up from Marriott Slaterville along the southern border in 1900 West are required and cannot be changed by the developer. The open space is required and cannot be changed by the developer. The trail system is required and cannot be changed by the developer. So the only thing that can be changed in our discretion is potentially those internal circulation roads. And those just, the reason why we need discretion on that is, again, we don't know how this is gonna develop out. We don't know what the demand for certain sizes of buildings, the orientation, the layout. And so those roads could shift. They could, we could bifurcate the property in a slightly different manner. We just need the ability to be fluid with the market process and in the internal aspects of the property. But we're guaranteeing and we're committing to the two roads, the southern boundary, 1900, the open space and the trail. Those are all binding on us in the development agreement. It cannot be changed. So.
Can I bring up a question? I know I'm not up there.
No, you're allowed to ask, yeah.
So up until tonight, we've been working under the premise that there'd be a gate on 1900, right? So the traffic studies, were they with or without the gate?
The traffic studies never contemplated a gate. Yeah.
So then, to be clear about what I'm getting at, is that the impact on 1900 isn't changing because of the lack of a gate?
No, not for the,
study, sorry.
yeah, not based on the study, no. And to be clear there, like from a developer perspective, we're okay with the gate. We don't care if there's a gate there. We don't think that our traffic's going on 1900. We feel like it's, like I mentioned, it's gonna go south to the freeway. So it's really a conversation between Far West, Marriott, Slaterville, and the fire marshal. And if ultimately a gate is determined to go there, we're comfortable with that.
Sure. I just wanted I wanted to know where the traffic study included, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Lou, do you have any other questions?
No, those are the main issues.
Okay. Anyone else? Greg?
I think 1900 is going to see a substantial amount of traffic, especially with the school traffic. And once you get the rest of these businesses in here and everything coming out of BDO and backing up on those lights and everything else, you're going to get a lot of people heading west down to get over to this road over here and go east or west. So I think you're going to see a substantial amount of traffic personally, because I know that's what I would do. I would travel from the east end of this to the west end to get out of there, not wait in traffic.
Yeah, and that, like I articulated, we're fine with the gate there if that's what the city's in, the fire marshal determined. I think that the question that you all have to ask is, if we just develop this with your general plan, would that generate more traffic or less traffic than what we're trying to talk about? And where would that traffic go? So I think if we were to develop this with your general plan as it is today, with no release valves through Marriott, Slaterville, where would that traffic go? And then what are we proposing and where would that traffic go? So I think what we're trying to do is provide an ability to less trip generations and also have multiple access points south to take it out of Far West and push it through Marriott, Slaterville, which can support it with 400 and the freeway access there.
Just a question, follow up on that.
Sure.
So if Far West opted to close the gate, just basically eliminate access, as a developer, you're fine with that arrangement?
On 1900?
Yes.
Yeah, we've said that from the beginning. We don't.
Just want to make sure people understand that.
Yep. And that's, like I said, it's a determination between the two cities and the fire marshal.
Any other questions?
I think my question is, so Marriott Slaterville required additional open space buffer, so we reduced the buffer on our end, right? And over here, close to the canal.
Yeah.
If we approve this, it's not the end site plan, right? So we could still require you to put that back, the buffer, correct, if we move forward? There's that.
So we have the buffer zone in Heritage. Your city requires 10% open space. Right now, if you look at the combination of all the open space on the drawing, it's roughly 14% of the ground in the total development. Okay, so that would leave 6% that would be around our buildings. So if we were to do just Far West and adhere to the 10% requirement, we would only have to provide an incremental 4% of landscaping or open space to your city. And the land that you already have in your city exceeds 4%. So by Far West City Code standards today, we already exceed what is required in your code because we agreed to do 20% across the entire project. So you're getting more now than you would have gotten otherwise.
I got one question.
Sure.
Just for the benefit of the gentleman who was not aware of what was going to be there. Can you elaborate, or just kind of briefly summarize what kind of businesses are allowed in the ICZ zone? So they will understand, because it's not, you know,
Yeah.
I think there's a misconception of warehousing, and warehousing is not allowed in some of these areas that we've got. But
Sure.
can you elaborate just a little bit, just summarize?
Yeah, I think the best example that we gave and kind of that we've talked about since the beginning is that Ogden Business Exchange. The Ogden Business Exchange has Charles System going through it, a lot heavier landscaping. It's got the Ogden Owns Distillery. It's got a lot of, so that it has retail component, sales component. It's got Enable Utah. It has, you know, a lot of different businesses in there. The buildings are nicer. So if you, in the development agreement, we actually raise the bar on what our buildings would have to look like aesthetically. We restrict what types of materials we can use. We say we have to be aesthetically, we have to do aesthetics on all four sides of the building. So it can't just be a fancy front and nothing on the sides and the back, which is typically how you would see in concrete style tilt-ups. So we've done a lot of things to dress this up, similar to the Ogden Business Exchange. A lot of the code that we proposed in our development agreement actually came from that project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Greg?
For the record, I still have issues with the height. Okay? A 50-foot high building with a 15-foot parapet wall is a 65-foot building. So, you know, I still have issues with that.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Greg's taking papers out over there.
Greg?
Can I ask one more? So we're talking about this Ogden business.
Yeah.
So I know this is not a fair question to ask. How tall-ish are those buildings?
50 feet. Yeah.
When I'm looking at that, I don't see tons and tons of 15-foot tall structures on top, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, so to be clear, the 15 feet isn't, you can't just raise the building 15 feet. It allows for, you know, mechanical equipment that's shielded from or screened from public view that doesn't count towards the 50 feet, but the mechanical equipment can sit on top of it. So if you have an HVAC equipment on top, it can be within that 15 foot. It doesn't count towards the 50. So there are a few items on the list that are carved out as that don't count to the 50, that can also go up to 15 feet. Similar to like what you'd see in zoning code for like a steeple and a chapel. So there's just a few things that are carved out on the list. The entire building can't be 64 feet.
And I ask because, you know, I would imagine that it'll be similar. I mean, we don't know what's coming in the future, but there's
Yeah.
really only one building that seems to really go nuts with extra structures. Most of these seem to meet their needs without that.
Yeah, and that's right. And if we do have HVAC equipment, it has to be screened from public view. So there's a lot of things that it's just not gonna, you know, you can't just put whatever you want on the top of your building. It has to be aesthetically pleasing. And we'll, you know, the development agreement already articulates that, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Geneva, I pulled up the ordinance, and if you're okay with it, I'll go ahead and write that, I'll list out what's allowed.
Okay, the ordinance, the new ordinance.
ITZ, yeah, the pending ordinance,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay, that's fine.
So what's allowed is agricultural, assembling in an enclosed building, financial service buildings or offices, equipment rental in an enclosed building, conference and or event centers, construction services in an enclosed building, no open or outdoor storage, critical infrastructure facilities, data centers, data warehousing and data processing, educational facilities, food and beverage products, manufacturing, storage and distribution, a hotel, laboratory research and development, industrial laundry services, light manufacturing, media services, medical services, clinical pharmaceutical research and laboratory, motion picture studios, professional offices, indoor custom packaging, health and fitness center, printing and publishing facilities, public utility substations, public and quasi-public uses, restaurants, retail and shops intended for the retail sale of goods and merchandise, theaters, amusement and recreation facilities, veterinary and pet-related services, and wholesale warehousing.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Thoughts, comments?
Thanks for responding to our questions multiple times.
Happy to. Thank
For
you.
months. Okay. Further discussion at all?
I'd still like to see a more in-depth concept plan. Kind of give us an idea where some of the buildings are gonna be, footprints of the buildings. Go over some of the property, so we have an idea. I mean, what we have now is just a blank slate with some potential roads. You know, you kind of have an idea what's gonna go in out there. I think you can get us a concept plan with some buildings or some footprints of buildings to give us an idea what's going on out there. Understanding that it may change.
If you would like to answer it, yes.
Yeah, sure. So the way that we did that, and again, I understand what the question, the premise of the question, how we address that in the development agreement is whenever we subdivide a lot, there's setback requirements, there's coverage requirements. So like, even though we don't have a building laid out on the concept plan, the exact footprint, when we subdivide, or even just doing the math now, you can kind of get an idea of what it will be just because of coverage ratios, setback requirements, everything that's already dictated in the code. So going back to the list you read, I think there's a lot of variability in that.
Sure.
It's a commercial zone, so the list you read is pretty standard for a commercial zone, but you can imagine if you were to go down Ogden Business Exchange, they've got smaller buildings, they've got buildings up to 80,000 feet. We build a 52,000 footer in there. They've got buildings smaller than that. So there's gonna range in sizes across this whole thing. So we honestly don't know what it's gonna be on the interior. We know that's the type of building and the concept that we're trying to go for. And that's why we articulated the list of all the heights, the uses, the setbacks, the coverage ratios, and things like that.
I understand, but your setbacks are from your property lines,
Correct.
okay? Don't even have property lines on here.
Yeah, because we'll have to come back for site plan review.
I
and
understand that, but
subdivision
as a
plat.
concept plan, we should have something that gives us an idea of what kind of property sizes we're gonna be looking at, because you go anywhere from 20,000 square feet to unlimited.
Yeah.
Our ordinance says 10 acres, but the development agreement says there's no maximum size for the lot. Okay, so that whole thing could be one building. You could have 100,000 square foot Amazon building come in here, UPS, FedEx. Okay, we don't know. I think we should have an idea of what's going on or what you're thinking about coming in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say is we don't know. That's why we
You gotta have some idea, otherwise you wouldn't try to develop it, in my opinion.
the some idea is
No public comment.
the some idea that we have, Commissioner, is the Ogden Business Exchange. I mean, that's why we drafted the development agreement and everything like that around it. And this is gonna be a multi-phase development over an extended period of time. And so whatever I put in front of you is gonna be wrong.
Well-
And that's why we say that, the concept is, and what we're trying to accomplish is Ogden Business Exchange is a great example. And the requirements in the development agreement and the code that you guys have adopted articulate those requirements and the needs of what we need to accomplish something like the Ogden Business Exchange.
Just a comment, if we were to opt to table the decision tonight, the question I'm asking is, what additional information would we seek that would help further decision? in the absence of viable alternatives, you've responded to all concerns. When you start to think of tabling it, you have to have some viable alternative to justify tabling it. At least that's my perspective. I'm having difficulty finding that viable alternative right now.
To add on to maybe what Lou's saying is, there was multiple comments about potential for kind of a mixed use, and you did your traffic study. And also you were kind of brought up that most of the way to get to this property, since it's landlocked, is through Marriott Slaterville. And we're saying that they kind of definitely said to them, they don't want to give access if it becomes more residential, just because of the traffic that will be put. Maybe kind of summarize that a little bit, because I'm just trying to make that connection. That one of the reasons why residential and mixed use is kind of not as viable is because the Marriott Slaterville side is saying, we wouldn't give access. We want only limited cars to be traffic to be passing through this area.
Yeah, and that, I don't want to speak for them in a public setting, but and I think multiple of you folks and city council members have talked to them directly. And I think the guidance has been to that effect, that it would be challenging. I think if you were on the other side of it and you were the city was going to take 99% of the traffic and it was going to be 13,000 trips versus the 4 that were required, like the project that we would generate. I think what you're saying, I think, has been the guidance.
Anything else for Daniel?
Getting good exercise, so happy to
No
keep going.
public comment. Sorry.
So,
No, I'm sorry.
There's another public.
There's another public hearing right after this. You can pop in. You're good to sit down. Is he good to sit down?
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
yes. Okay. More discussion, motion.
I move it. Are we closing the public hearing?
We've already closed
We
it.
closed it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Thoughts?
I move that we recommend to the city council to approve the West Creek Master Development Agreement located on the south boundary line of Far West City off of Cottonwood Drive.
Motion by Lyle,
I'll second that.
second by Darren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. Do you need anything else from? Okay, you got everyone's, okay. Okay, I was gonna say, that's what I'm worried about. Okay, we're gonna do a roll call. Brandon, Darren,
I said aye.
Lou,
Abstain.
Lyle,
Aye.
Greg.
Nay.
That good? Okay. That motion passes. We will move on to the next item, public hearing to consider the request of the rezone of the West Creek Master Development from the A1 to the Innovation Commercial Zone, ICZ, on the following parcels listed below. Do you have a motion to enter into the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Lou,
Second.
second by Brandon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in the public hearing related to the rezone. There is going to be a 3-minute time limit. Please come up and state your name and address. I don't think we need a presentation from the developer at all. But he can answer questions afterward if you have anything to say.
I gotta take off, so.
Yeah, go for it. You're fine. Thank you, Jason. Do we have anyone in the public that wants to say anything?
Greg did explain the most significant part of it, and that's the list of permitted uses, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
Aaron Burnett, again, going back to the
Yes, please.
1858 Heritage Ranch Road, Far West Utah, 844-319-440. So considering the rezone, it doesn't go with the master plan, number one. That's going against what the city would like to see done with the property. The current use could be done. I asked the question earlier about the benefits of the proposed development. And the question was answered basically all based on potential money-driven reasons. As far as residents of Far West, the zoning allows for residential currently. The state's asking us to give opportunities for people to live. We're taking that away by rezoning this in a way that won't let residential, your kids, my kids, be able to come and live in Far West City. I think we need to think of the benefits of what could be done. If we did a mixed-use development that was creatively done, that gave so much more back to the city, open space that can be shared with Marriott Slaterville and Far West, city parks, a soccer field, basketball courts, open space that is usable, not just a buffer zone. Excuse me, I'm talking.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay, don't want to be interrupted. So we have the opportunity to have open space that's usable. The proposed development doesn't allow, is not giving anything back to the public for usable space for Far West citizens. In a mixed-use development, there's wonderful things that can happen from that. 55 and older development, there's great wisdom that is given when you have people living maybe by townhomes for younger families that can come in and live. There could be the mid-size homes. So first I could come here and live in a townhome, and then, excuse me.
Sorry, keep going.
So I can live in a townhome, a starter home, in a great development, have friends. Then I could potentially move to maybe have my house, my family grows a little bit bigger. In that same development, move to a lot that is provided creatively to be able to have a lot there. And then maybe as I get older, there's a 55 and older development that, boy, I want to stay in that same area. So now I can live in that same location. And then
You have 10 seconds.
maybe I have a bigger lot. The diversity is what is available within that mixed-use zone. I have a design that would meet that,
Your minutes
of
are up.
open
Please sit down.
space, give back to the cities, the
Please sit
benefits outweigh the financial, and there is financial
Aaron.
benefits.
Please sit down. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Anyone else that wants to make a comment? If there's none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion we close the public hearing.
Motion by Darren,
Second.
second by Brandon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to our next item, recommendation to city council approval or denial of the rezone for the West Creek Master Development from A1 to ICZ. Discussion, questions for the developer?
Just one comment. This zone is a geographically specific zone. In other words, it's not going to be applied other places in Far West, and you need to understand that. That makes it somewhat unique as a zone. We have another one on 2700 North, but it's designated for a specific site on Far West.
And as far as the master plan is concerned, this master plan is residential and commercial, so this is a commercial zone that falls in, so it fits the master plan. Just clarifying a couple
The
things.
language in the master plan for potential future use isn't specific to a zone, it's use based. So it says it could be used for commercial or it could be used for residential. Don't confuse that with the mixed use zone. Those are two different things.
I think we have another area on 2700 that would be working for this, that's available right now. I'm not sure that this is the best solution for this location, especially with what it's gonna cost Far West to do, with the improvements that we have to put in. And so that's my thought.
Thank you.
I have just a question, because it seems like Darren's come and he's brought like a lot of concerns. And I don't think 5 minutes is a good amount of time to kind of relay all those concerns and let there be like a back and forth between maybe him and the developer. My only thought is, could we table this and maybe do a work session, or would that not be maybe something viable? I'm just saying, 5 minutes is not a lot of time. We did move forward with part of this, and my only concern is just a potential back and forth, just to hear. Lou's kind of brought it up. I know that we've heard that via all the different research that it's not viable, but I would like to have just a broader work session
I'll let
involving
Leanne
that.
talk. I mean,
Yeah, I don't want to
You can,
step out
you
of
can
turn.
always make that motion, and that's just fine. The other consideration, though, to take into account is that the public's been noticed about this for quite a while. Public has opportunity to write in anything besides the public comment they make in this meeting today. So I understand that 3 or 5 minutes doesn't seem like enough, but this has been noticed for a significant amount of time. There is other opportunity for them to write in concerns and address it that way as well. But you're welcome to make the motion. That is totally fine, within your discretion to do.
and my comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Liam, we just approved a development agreement. And that has a lot of the same things that's needed for the rezone, so
Yeah.
I'm confused on the situation.
It would have seemed more appropriate to have tabled the development agreement rather than.
Correct. That would have seemed
That
more
would have seemed
logical.
So we're kind of,
Yes.
we're kind of going the
I
opposite
thought it
direction.
was backwards on the.
Well, it's correct on the agenda because you need the development agreement before you can rezone.
Can I make a comment, though? I did choose the word viable alternative carefully. And given that the property is owned by the developer, which was made clear tonight, I really wonder what the viable alternative would be, because you're talking about a private property owner developing his property. It's not like a developer is going to acquire the property. That would be a very different story. The fact that the property has already been purchased, or there's agreement for purchase at least, to me, that makes it difficult for me to see what a viable alternative would be, other than literally telling the property owner what he can or can't do with his property.
And I agree with that. I mean, it would be a little different in a different scenario, but the property owner is the one before us. And never have we required someone else that owns the property to come find a better option because we don't like it. So I do find that a little strange. More discussion? Brandon, comments? Do you
I'm
look
just
confused?
I'm only confused that I thought maybe by passing that first one, that this was more of the where we would have the discussion, but it's fine.
Well, and I guess in my eyes, the meat is in the development agreement. That is where our bounds and rules and regulations are, and the rezone is the next step beyond that. So I'm missing the connector piece to that.
Yeah, I just kind of see the rezone as more of like then it's finite, right? So they came with a development agreement that's pliable, that we approve preliminary, right? But as they bring the different sections to it, then there's potential. But once we get into this ITZ zone, we kind of talked about that's what's going to happen going forward, basically, right?
Yeah, that ICZ zone will be the underlying zone. The development agreement will deviate from that zone in certain instances specified in that development agreement.
That's why I kind of saw this as maybe like once
there's-
we pass this, then it's moving
There's
forward no
more
matter what.
bounds and regulations in the development agreement than the underlying zone.
The biggest reference in the development agreement is says that they're going to be bound to the zone as far as use. In other words, they can't go deviate from the permitted uses, but And that's where the two link together, so.
More discussion? Comments? Motion? Something?
Motion would be probably a good idea.
Concerns?
I have a question for Liam, okay? It was disclosed today that the chair works for the developer,
Yes.
okay? We're going to be having numerous meetings with regards to the development of this project. And she is attending those meetings representing Far West while also working for the developer. Is that a conflict of interest?
It is not. And that has already been vetted and we've had that discussion.
I just wanted to ask that question
Thank you for asking that question.
because I had a judge tell me it was.
In certain circumstances, different from this, it certainly could be. But Geneva is not here on behalf of the developer. She works for the developer. I mean, if Home Depot was going to build a Home Depot in our neighborhood and you happen to work for Home Depot, that wouldn't make a conflict. You could use in your own discretion, you could. It's not an outright conflict of interest.
And I do not have a vote.
I think that's significant.
That's the significant,
Yeah,
part. If I had a
that's
vote,
significant.
that would be much different.
Just my 2 cents is when Geneva worked for a previous employer, we had several agenda items related to that developer. And in every case, Geneva was a voting member at the time. She got up and walked out and stayed out until somebody got her after the voting was complete. She reclused herself completely from those.
Like I said, I just wanted to ask the question on the public record, so there's no
As a
questions.
member of the planning commission, I feel comfortable in saying Geneva has not exercised any pressure on us on the basis of her employment. Our decision-making process has been open dialogue. She has not censored anybody or prevented anybody from fully expressing their views and concerns. I think that's reflected even tonight. So while it looked potentially like a problem, it has not functionally influenced our decision process in the commission. I want you to understand that.
Okay. Someone ready for something?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I recommend to the city council approval of the rezone of the West Creek Master Development from A1 zone to the ICZ zone.
Motion by Darren,
I'll second.
second by Lyle. We're just gonna go do a roll call. Brandon,
I'm gonna abstain.
Darren,
Aye.
Lou,
To be consistent with my previous vote, I abstain.
Lyle,
Aye.
Greg.
Denied.
What happens now?
Okay, so now that motion didn't pass, so we need another motion on the table. I would urge caution to those who abstain to abstain with reason, not because you don't want to vote. You guys are planning commissioners. You're supposed to make the hard decisions. If you have a valid reason for abstaining, then abstain. If you want to abstain just because you don't feel like voting, that's not a valid reason for abstaining.
Okay, let me explain my position here. I have no problem with the concept of the zone, but I thought it would be inconsistent if I abstained in the first one.
It won't.
Okay, if
It won't.
that's the case, I'll vote yay, because I have no problem with the zone as it's spelled out.
So Darren, could you restate your motion? Make that motion again. We need a second, and then we'll go through and vote again.
I recommend to the city council approval of the rezone of the West Creek Master Development from A1 zone to the ICZ zone.
Thank you. Motion by Darren. You have to second again.
Oh, second. I'll second.
Second by
Sorry.
Lyle. Roll call. Brandon.
Still going to abstain. Do I need to say why? I would have abstained on the first one because I really want that dialogue to happen. I just, even though you said that he could have written what was written more than 5 minutes, that's still, and I would have abstained the first time to have that dialogue, but that's why I'm abstaining this time.
So you can still abstain. In that situation, you should just say, no, you don't agree with the motion,
then-
truthfully.
Aaron.
Aye.
Lou.
Aye.
Lyle.
Aye.
Greg.
Nay.
Motion passes. That being said, you guys will be on city council agenda for approval or denial next week, 6:30.
November 7th.
Sorry, November
Won't be here
7th.
Halloween.
Okay, sorry, November 7th. The public is more than welcome to come to that meeting. I was gonna say, we encourage you to. There is not a public hearing, but you're more than welcome to attend that meeting. So,
What kind of question, man?
I'm sorry, we can't, I'm sorry. Just come up to the mic for a second and say your question. As far as knowing when the next meeting is? Okay, sorry.
Randy Ganger, 1720 West, 1300 North. How do we get this information? You know when I heard about this last night?
I know.
Shouldn't we, as residents, get something maybe in the mail every time you're doing things like this?
So we have it all posted on the website, all on the
Hey,
Utah.
some of us are old and
Hold
don't go to the
on, I know,
website.
let me keep going. All posted on the Utah Public Notice. If you were within the 5 or 300 feet, you got a mailer that went in the mail.
Why is there a 5,
Facebook,
300
social
feet?
media, all that.
Why can't the residents, we get letters for other things from you guys. Why can't all
State law,
residents?
state law. So
State
that's
law
up.
says we cannot get a letter.
State
from
law
you.
says within 300 feet, you'll get your notice. Otherwise, you have to subscribe to the Utah Open Public Notice website. You get an email. It tells you when the meetings are upcoming. It'll do it for you.
And how many old people are on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end. Okay. Consent items, approval of the minutes dated October 10th, 2024.
Since I had to make a correction on that, I will approve the minutes from the October 10th, 2024.
Did we make a correction on them?
I did, yes.
What was the correction?
That I voted to deny
Okay,
because I hadn't read it.
you did vote to deny.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay,
So,
okay, motion by Greg, second by Lou. Sorry, Lyle. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? You guys are taking it all out of me tonight. Report on assignments. Make them short and sweet tonight. Greg,
Done.
Lou, or Lyle.
I will wait till November 8th. It's been a long night.
Thank you. Lou,
Nothing to report.
Darren,
Just the PD overlay and the Wasatch Front Regional Council workshop yesterday, and that was it.
you did an awesome job on that ordinance. Really appreciate that. Brandon,
I watched a bunch of YouTubes to start getting my hours up, so reminder, right? We gotta get in our 4 hours.
if there are members of the public that would like to talk, please step out of the meeting. Darren, if you would like to speak, please step out of the meeting while we're still in session. Thank you. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
Oh, I just said, got my hours, just reminder to everybody, get your 4 hours.
Thank you. And remember, we do have 1 hour collected for attending our meetings, and we already had the open meetings training, which counts for another hour.
Brandon, sorry, Geneva,
Yeah, you're good.
that meeting we attended last night,
That workshop
that
count.
workshop,
Does that count?
that
should
Yes.
count.
that's training.
That's the turning.
I don't know what you guys attended last week. Sorry.
The WFR, it was last night, WFR.
The workshop.
Okay, that probably counts, but I can't guarantee it.
We'll just say it does.
It probably
Reminder
does.
that there's that Excel that's in the Dropbox to fill it out also.
Fill it out. Perfect. I was gonna say, Tim said it did count, is what he says.
Last year.
Oh, okay, perfect. Greg,
One other thing too, was also that meeting with the development agreement training we had too.
oh yeah, that was good too.
That- yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think better,
So if you attend, it was a Zoom meeting
yeah.
about the development
I
agreement.
watched it on YouTube.
Yeah, that counts.
Sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. Any other assignment related questions? Remember the trunk or treat Monday. I would like to see all of you here, so, okay. Is there a
Recommend we
motion?
Close the meeting.
Thank you,
I'll
Greg.
second.
Motion by Greg, second by Lyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What, you gotta go to bed, Lou?
No, I've got an important event with my family.